Chapter 27:17, I quite despise you guys, too. Seeing Leng Ruoxue suddenly say this out of the blue, everyone felt that it was a little strange. However, they believed that when Leng Ruoxue said that she despised them, it was absolutely true. Because from her eyes, it was already clearly expressed. Instantly, everyone's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Too much. This was really too much. They hadn't even said anything yet. Leng Ruoxue was the one who despised them first. What the hell is this? Was there any justice left in this world? Since you don't like us, you can leave. Why are you still here? Leng Ruoxue's words had greatly agitated Elder Qi. Therefore, he had jumped out without a care and had lost his rationality. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she could only look at Elder Qi helplessly and honestly replied, I want to leave, but as long as you accept my mission, I'll leave immediately. Miss Leng, I don't understand. Why do you have to come here to post a mission? Didn't you already put a bounty on the Divine Master in the Divine World? Miao Jia, who had been silent for a long time, finally couldn't help but ask. Why? Didn't your wife tell you? Leng Ruoxue asked instead of answering. Ah. Tell me what? Miao Jia asked in a daze. What did this have to do with his wife? I've already spoken to your wife. Go back and ask her. Leng Ruoxue teased. Miao Jia's face turned red when he heard that. Ask madam. How to ask? The madam was still ignoring him. He didn't beat him up either, so this made him quite uneasy. Sob. Don't tell me that madam doesn't want me anymore. Ugh. That's a little off topic. Miao Jia quickly pulled himself back from his thoughts and looked at Leng Ruoxue shamelessly, hoping that she could answer his question. However, Leng Ruoxue didn't want to repeat herself, so she only said indifferently, Isn't the Quest Guild a place to release quests? If I don't come here to post my mission, who else can I find? Miao Jia was speechless. Leng Ruoxue's question was very profound, but the mission she was about to issue was even more confusing. All the higher-ups of the Mission Guild, now fully display your duties and obediently accept the mission for me. Well, I'll be happy. Otherwise, I can only let you all down. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she reminded him. What are you doing? After hearing this, a branch president couldn't help but ask. Use force. Leng Ruoxue said matter-of-factly. Guild leader, say something. We can't let Leng Ruoxue be like this. Hearing that they were going to use force, the branch president who had just spoken quickly turned his gaze to Miao Jia and said loudly. Yup. President, please say something. With someone taking the lead, the branch presidents all spoke up. What do you want me to say? What's the use of my words alone? You let me decide everything, what do I need you people for? Is it just a decoration? Miao Jia was furious and spoke without thinking. Miao Jia was furious. The people from the Mission Guild didn't dare to respond. However, they couldn't help but think to themselves, you're the president. If you don't make the decision, are you going to let them do it? If your words were useless, then wouldn't their words be as useless as farts? For a moment, everyone was resentful. At a time like this, the president should have taken over the role alone. However, not only did Miao Jia not do that, but he even scolded them for being useless. This was definitely going to be an internal conflict. This was also the so-called tyrannical in the nest. Some people couldn't help but despise Miao Jia. Thanks, even Leng Ruoxue was starting to look down on him. He heard Leng Ruoxue sneer, President Miao, why don't you let me be the president? I'll make the decision for you. I think it's fine. Someone in the crowd shouted at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, Miao Jia's face turned green with anger. Fuck. As expected, there were traitors. Unfortunately, the voice had appeared too suddenly, and he didn't see who had said it. Look. I'm definitely the guild leader. Leng Ruoxue followed the cue and said impolitely. Miao Jia's face turned green and then black. Miss Leng, Please don't make such a joke. Miao Jie said righteously. President Miao, do you think I'm joking? Leng Ruoxue scoffed. Guild leader, I'll say the same thing again. You'd better give me an answer immediately. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to use force. At that time, your guild leader position will really belong to me. After that, Leng Ruoxue warned. Leng Ruoxue, this is Yu City. Do you really think you can do whatever you want to us here? Miao Jie was furious. He directly called Leng Ruoxue by her name and threatened her. You can try. Leng Ruoxue smiled sweetly. Try. Did he dare to? No. He did not dare to try. However, it didn't matter if he didn't dare to try. Song was already getting impatient. He told Leng Ruoxue, girl, don't talk nonsense with them. Now that we're all here, let's quickly take action. When they heard the little white cat in Leng Ruoxue's arms speak, everyone was shocked. There were really people who weren't afraid of making a big deal out of it. Right. Hurry up and exterminate the rhyme bitch's dog. The little red flower in Azure's arms also swayed its beautiful petals as it cheered. The moment this little flower opened its mouth, everyone's shock turned into petrification. This flower can talk. They had thought that the flower on the little white cat's chest was just a decoration. Who knew that it was actually alive? Wait a minute. If the flower could speak, didn't that mean that it had already developed intelligence? Oh my God. One had to know that flowers and plants that had gained sentience were all heavenly treasures and extremely precious. More importantly, this kind of plant was extremely rare, but now there was one in front of them. How could they not be excited? In that instant, everyone who had regained their senses stared at Xiaohua with burning eyes. The attraction of the blood lotus flower had even made them forget that Leng Ruoxue, their mortal malady, was right beside them. Leng Ruoxue felt helpless about their unprofessional behavior. She had not expected that the blood lotus flower would dare to open its mouth in front of so many people. What a little fellow who liked to show off. Wasn't it afraid that someone would try to take advantage of it? In fact, since the blood lotus flower dared to speak, there was really nothing to be afraid of. Who asked it to cling onto Tsung, this thick leg? But the others were not clear about this. The appearance of the snow lotus flower made some of the elders' thoughts alive again. Many of them secretly thought that if they could get this treasure and give it to the Divine Master, the Divine Master might be happy and make them the president of the mission headquarters. It had to be said that wealth would always make some greedy people lose their rationality. In addition, the elders present who had designs on the blood lotus flower did not think that the snow-white cat without a single stray hair was very powerful. Therefore, some people were determined to get the blood lotus flower. Leng Ruoxue, we will not accept your mission. Since you have disrespected the Divine Master, we naturally cannot let you leave so easily. However, if you are willing to keep this flower, we will treat it as if nothing had happened. How about it? All of a sudden, an elder spoke a bunch of grand words and even expressed his stance on behalf of everyone present, but his purpose was self-evident. Chapter 27:18, I quite despise you guys. 3. Leng Ruoxue laughed when she heard that. Elder Wu Ming, do you represent yourself or the headquarters? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. I really didn't expect this. She had said so much nonsense before, but no one had taken the initiative to make a statement. However, a little flower had made some people jump out on their own initiative. If she had known this earlier, why would she have wasted her breath on them? It would have been better to send the blood lotus flower directly. Of course I represent the mission headquarters. The elder said with an extremely firm will. President Miao Jie, you don't have any objections either? Leng Ruoxue turned to ask Miao Jie. Miao Jie hesitated for a moment, but he still answered truthfully, we really can't accept your mission. He did not say a word about who the flower belonged to. In fact, he was also somewhat interested in that heavenly treasure, but as the president of a guild, he couldn't just openly claim the flower as his own in front of everyone. That would be too damaging to his prestige as the president. What about you guys? Leng Ruoxue then asked the other elders. Most of the elders were silent, but a few of them nodded. Very good, a flower has allowed you to make a quick decision. Since that's the case, I can end my courtesies before violence. Sung, let's do it. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction before turning to Tsang. Humph. You must be tired of living to have designs on my little blood. Yes, yes. Big thigh, annihilate them all. The blood lotus flower jeered. Hearing the word thigh, Leng Ruoxue was a little embarrassed. These two words had a good image, but she didn't know what Tsang would think. However, Azure clearly didn't care and was quite eager to try. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue, a human, a beast, and a flower, looked like they were really about to start a fight, Miao Jie suddenly felt a little uneasy. He carefully confirmed, Leng Ruoxue, do you really want to fight? Do you think I'm joking? Come on. I've played with you long enough. Now, let's have a showdown. The losing side will be at the mercy of the winner. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Leng Ruoxue, you're only one person. You're overestimating yourself if you think you can fight against so many of us. Seeing Leng Ruoxue's shameless boasting, Elder Qi couldn't help but roar in anger. You guys try and you'll know if I'm overestimating myself. Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly as she spoke in a nonchalant manner. As soon as she finished speaking, a white lightning bolt shot out from Leng Ruoxue's arms. Whoosh! Whoosh! After a few flashes, only white rays of light were left in the air, but wherever the lightning went, a group of elders fell. Those elders didn't even have the time to scream for help before they directly fainted. At this moment, the elders who were still safe and sound finally felt fear. It was really too terrifying. How did the little white cat do it? The elders who were still conscious felt that it was unbelievable, but in the next second, this kind of treatment was on them. In just a few minutes, the elders who had been awake all fell to the ground with pale faces. This scene made Miao Jie's face turn pale with horror. How? How did this happen? Fear, panic, and fear surrounded Miao Jie. He had never felt that death was so close to him. Was this Leng Ruoxue's true strength? No, this was only the cat's. It was the kitten that Leng Ruoxue carried in his arms all day long, which made him feel that other than acting cute, it was useless. And Leng Ruoxue had yet to reveal her true abilities. However, that cat was enough to make Miao Jie tremble in fear. All of a sudden, he deeply felt that he and the others had made the wrong decision. Leng Ruoxue was just like the legend said one should never provoke her. But now that he had done so, what was he supposed to do? Just as Miao Jie's expression was changing like a color palette, Tsang had already turned around and returned to Leng Ruoxue's arms. Other than the branch guild leaders that they had already recruited, only Miao Jie was safe and sound. And Tsang had left Miao Jie behind on purpose. Pa! Miao Jie heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Miao Jie looked up and his expression changed drastically. You! Miao Jie pointed at the object on the ground with a trembling finger. It was the subordinate he had sent to the Divine Master's estate. He was so shocked that he could not speak. Guild Master, sob. I didn't even have the chance to go to the Divine Master's estate before I was captured by them. When the subordinate saw Miao Jie, he cried as if he had seen a family member. Thanks, you. Miao Jie looked at Leng Ruoxue with a complicated expression. He took a few deep breaths before continuing, the current result is the real purpose of you coming to the headquarters, right? The arrest warrant for God Lord Cloud Ripple was just an excuse. At this point, what else did Miao Jie not understand? Not bad. I came to the Imperial City to take over the headquarters mission. Leng Ruoxue didn't hide anything and told him her true motive. If that's the case, why didn't you make a move earlier, and instead let me cause so much trouble like a jumping clown? Miao Jie was filled with grief and indignation, and there seemed to be tears in his eyes. He deeply felt that he had been completely played by Leng Ruoxue for the past few days. This fact made him quite worried. Leng Ruoxue must have been laughing at him in secret. Do you think I didn't want to make a move earlier? But you don't have enough people. In addition, I like to subdue my subordinates through peaceful means before resorting to force. If you are willing to submit to me, that would naturally be the best. So, please believe me, I've been giving you time. I won't force you until the end. Unfortunately, you've disappointed me greatly, because you're too insensible. Leng Ruoxue explained with a helpless expression. In reality, she was very polite to the headquarters. Other than the fact that the headquarters was established by her master, it was also because the higher UPS here were basically all divine emperors. Since they were experts, they naturally couldn't be treated as they pleased. Therefore, Leng Ruoxue gave them enough respect, especially to Miao Jie. She had done her best. After all, she didn't want her future subordinates to have any dissatisfaction with her. After she had done everything she could, these people still insisted on doing things their own way, so she couldn't be blamed. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's explanation, Miao Jie's feelings became even more complicated. It turned out that it was their arrogance that had harmed them. Why did you leave me alone? Why didn't you let me end up like them? Miao Jie asked again after a long time. You're the guild leader of the Missions Guild, of course you have to be different. Now, make your decision. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. I can't betray the Divine Master. Miao Jie said after some hesitation. Even though he knew that his answer might anger Leng Ruoxue, he really couldn't. Because of your father and the others? Leng Ruoxue said. From Green Vessel's mind-reading ability, she knew more about Miao Jie. This was also one of the reasons why she had not made a move. Miao Jie was shocked when he heard that. How did Leng Ruoxue know? He didn't even tell his wife about this. Moreover, he had the idea of getting that flower for a moment, and it was also to save his father. I know why you've been so loyal to that bitch, Ripple Mist, since you were young. Leng Ruoxue continued to disclose more exciting news. This time, Miao Jie was really provoked. One should know that these things had been buried in his heart for many years. Now, no one in the headquarters knew about his past. However, at this moment, Leng Ruoxue had found out about all these old things. He was a little afraid. Uneasily looking at the branch president behind Leng Ruoxue, Miao Jie's face was ashen as he asked, You're saying all this just to get me to surrender? I just wanted to tell you that I can save your father, your master, and the others. Leng Ruoxue said nonchalantly. However, Miao Jie obviously didn't believe her words. After the secret in his heart was exposed, he slowly calmed down and laughed. Do you think it's that easy to save them? What if I can save them? Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. As long as you can save them, I'll recognize you as my master. Miao Jie said without hesitation. He did not believe that Leng Ruoxue could save her. If it was that easy to save her, he would not have been restrained by Fog Ripple all these years. He even had to act like he respected Fog Ripple on the surface, but in reality, he hated Fog Ripple to death. Since that's the case, you can recognize me as your master now. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Miao Jie was dumbfounded. How could this be? If he recognized her as his master, where was she? Was he rescued? Very quickly, Leng Ruoxue answered his question. Did you think I was sleeping in my room the past few days? To tell you the truth, I went to save someone. Leng Ruoxue smiled smugly, as if she was willing to see Miao Jie's dumbfounded expression. Miao Jie was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and asked anxiously, Where's that person? Jie. At this moment, an old man's voice sounded from outside the meeting hall. Miao Jie looked in the direction of the voice and saw a familiar figure in his memory. Tears welled up in his eyes and he pounced on the legs of the person who spoke like a child. He hugged the person's leg and started crying. Father! Miao Jie howled loudly. The man he was hugging looked extremely old. His body was hunched over and riddled with scars. His clothes were slightly tattered and even emitted a damp and moldy smell. His current appearance made Leng Ruoxue, who was watching from the side, feel speechless. This person was definitely doing this on purpose. He had been rescued for a few days, but he had not changed his clothes or treated his injuries. At the very least, he had to take a bath and wash his face, right? However, in order to make his son feel the pain he had suffered for so many years, this man had actually appeared in such a manner. Miao Jie was probably even more shocked now. Chapter 27:19, I don't need you to give in. 1. However, Leng Ruoxue more or less understood what the other party was thinking. She knew that Miao Jie's father was just afraid that Miao Jie had been brainwashed by the fog over the years and had lived a comfortable life for so long that he would forget about his hatred. However, in reality, although Miao Jie had always shown his loyalty to the fog, he was also constantly thinking about saving his father, master, and the others. However, as time went by, his hard work had not yielded any results. Slowly, he became disheartened. After Leng Ruoxue heard about this from Qingju, she did not immediately look for Miao Jie. Instead, she went to rescue the people he cared about. Such an unexpected result was a huge blow to Miao Jie, but it was also easier to win his heart. Originally, Leng Ruoxue did not want to go through so much trouble to treat Miao Jie. After all, he was just a relatively important chess piece in her own spy network back then. However, after knowing Miao Jie's background, she immediately changed her mind. Miao Jie's father, Miao Yuan, was the first president appointed by her master when he created the Mission Guild. However, after her master fell, Miao Yuan was not willing to join the fog, so he was imprisoned by the fog. However, the treatment he received was much better than Dongfang Yu and the others. After all, Miao Yuan and the others were not considered as her master's true subordinates. Moreover, the fog had to use him to restrain Miao Jie and make him work like a slave for her, so she did not abuse him too much. However, Miao Yuan did not think so. That fellow was extremely loyal to his master and did not think highly of Wu Chen at all. Naturally, he would not be grateful that Wu Chen had shown mercy to him. Moreover, Wu Chen had imprisoned those who did not obey her leadership. As such, Miao Yuan would not appreciate her kindness. Therefore, even though Miao Yuan had been hiding for the past few days, he did not manage to deal with his image properly. Miao Yuan just wanted Miao Jie to take a good look at him and give him a warning. Miao Jie didn't let him down. After seeing his father's miserable state, he said angrily, "Father, Wu Chen promised me that she would treat you well. She actually lied to me. To think that I've been working so hard for her all these years." Miao Jie was so angry that he stopped calling her divine master and directly called her by her name. When she heard that she would be treated the same way as Wu Cheng, Leng Ruoxue felt uncomfortable in her heart. She really didn't want to be associated with Wu Cheng. At this time, Miao Yuan also said angrily, "You brat, only you will believe that ingrate's words. Her words are all lies to 3-year-old children." "Father, I was wrong." Miao Jie quickly lowered his head and admitted his mistake with red eyes. He looked exactly like a 3-year-old child right now. "It's good that you know you're in the wrong. In the future, you have to listen to young master's words, understand?" Miao Yuan ordered with a stern face. "Young master?" Miao Jie was bewildered. He had no idea who the young master his father was talking about was. "Idiot. In the future, you will have to listen to young master Leng Ruoxue." Miao Yuan called out his name directly. At this point, Miao Jie had no choice but to understand. However, he was still a little confused. How did Leng Ruoxue suddenly become a young master? "Young master, I will be obedient in the future," he said obediently. Leng Ruoxue chuckled when she saw Miao Jie's serious and childish words. She did not expect Miao Jie to have such a silly and cute side. However, she still said in a serious tone, "Be good." Miao Jie was embarrassed, and his face turned red. His face was burning as if it was on fire. Thanks suddenly, Miao Jie heard a faint snickering sound and came to a realization. There were still outsiders here. Why did he acknowledge Leng Ruoxue as his master? The outsiders he was referring to were naturally the branch presidents who were watching the commotion with wide eyes. Understanding Miao Jie's thoughts, Leng Ruoxue pointed at the branch presidents and said, "They've been my people for a long time." Miao Jie was shocked. These branch presidents had been working for Leng Ruoxue since a long time ago. Could it be that she had planned all of this long ago and was now just waiting to cast the net to catch them? AI. Miao Jie could not help but sigh. No wonder Leng Ruoxue looked so confident. Look at what she had done without them noticing. However, the more he understood, the more he felt that he had been like a clown. With that thought, he looked at Leng Ruoxue with hidden bitterness and pointed at the elders who had fainted on the ground. What about them? Naturally, it's a forced master. Leng Ruoxue said without a trace of emotion. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie felt that she was treating him very well. However, in order to show his loyalty, Miao Jie took the initiative to sign the contract. After all, he was once a member of Fog City. Even if Leng Ruoxue didn't mind, he couldn't give others the chance to gossip about him. As for Leng Ruoxue, she was naturally very satisfied with Miao Jie's way of doing things. After that, the elders who were awakened one by one were told collectively that they would either recognize their master or die. Choose one. Under Leng Ruoxue's violent suppression, most of the elders tactfully chose to recognize her as their master. In reality, they had no choice. I can't just die, right? They did not have such a high level of awareness. He wasn't that unyielding either. However, there were always one or two elders who felt that they were different, such as Elder Qi. Even at a time like this, he still did not forget to use the Divine Master to threaten Leng Ruoxue. He also expressed his deep disdain towards the elders' submission. Leng Ruoxue, it's not like you defeated us. I'm not convinced. I won't recognize you as my master, and the Divine Master won't let you go. The Divine Master will take revenge for us. Elder Qi shouted fearlessly. Even Miao Jie, who heard this, could not help but break out in a cold sweat for him. Of course, he didn't care about Elder Qi's life or death. He was just worried about Elder Qi's audacity. If he angered his new master, he really didn't know what this seemingly gentle but actually bad-tempered master would do. As expected, the moment Elder Qi finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue's smile became even more charming. She then asked, from Elder Qi's words, "You mean you want to fight me one-on-one?" "That's right. I will only submit to you if you defeat me." Elder Qi cowered, but he still gathered his courage and replied. "Very good. I like it when you're this tough, come on. I'll give you a chance." Leng Ruoxue was neither angry nor annoyed, and her voice was unusually calm. "I'll let you make the first move, how about it?" Leng Ruoxue added. Instantly, Elder Qi's old face turned red because of Leng Ruoxue's words. Fuck. He was a man. If a woman gave way to him, where would he put his face? Leng Ruoxue, stop looking down on me. I don't need you to give in. Elder Qi was so angry that he shouted at the top of his lungs. All right then. Leng Ruoxue looked at Elder Qi helplessly, then looked at the others with an innocent expression. The expression on her beautiful face seemed to be saying, look. He was the one who didn't allow me to. Chapter 27:20, I don't need you to give in, too. Seeing this, everyone's lips twitched and cold sweat broke out. However, what happened next petrified them all. This was because after Elder Qi, who was initially eager to fight, made his move, Leng Ruoxue did not receive his attack, nor did she prepare to attack. Instead, she stood calmly on the spot without moving. It was only when the wind blade condensed by Elder Qi's divine power was right in front of her that her body swayed slightly. If it were not for everyone's excellent eyesight, they would not have noticed that slight movement. But what about Elder Qi? The fact that Leng Ruoxue had managed to nullify his attack had thoroughly infuriated him. Hence, he did not even think twice before he attacked again. This time, Leng Ruoxue finally made a big move. she immediately turned into a stream of light and shot towards Elder Chi. When she was right in front of him, Leng Ruoxua gracefully lifted her leg and kicked Elder Chi's waist. Then, the crowd saw Elder Chi flying towards the wall of the assembly hall like a kite with a broken string. With a loud bang, the originally solid wall of the meeting hall had a human-shaped hole in it, and Elder Chi was embedded in the wall. Even though Leng Ruoxua rarely did such a thing, she had seen a lot and learned quickly. Hence, the entire set of movements was so smooth that it dazzled the eyes of everyone present and made them exclaim in admiration. The things that Leng Ruoxua had done and the strength that she had displayed had caused them to be completely petrified and shocked. After a long time, they finally regained their senses. However, the way they looked at Leng Ruoxua had completely changed. With Elder Chi standing out, the other elders who had wanted to stir up trouble were all like newborn chicks, obedient and honest. No one wanted to be embedded in the wall like Elder Chi and become a mural. At this time, they both sympathized with Elder Chi's encounter, but they could not help but be glad that he had sacrificed himself. Otherwise, they would probably be included in the mural now. However, after Elder Chi became a mural, he did not faint. Instead, he was extremely clear-headed. After struggling a few times, Elder Chi saw that he couldn't break free, so he shouted at the top of his voice, "Put me down, quickly put me down." Leng Ruoxua, did you hear that? Who are you talking to, huh? Leng Ruoxua squinted her beautiful eyes and said indifferently. Woo. I was wrong, please let me down. I don't want to stay up there. When Elder Chi heard this, he immediately gave in. The current him was like someone who had been stripped of all his clothes and allowed to be seen by others, making him quite uncomfortable. Moreover, it was a little high up there. He was afraid of heights. It's so good up there. You can stand high and see far. The scenery must be very beautiful and charming. Moreover, you're looking down from above, and we all have to look up to you. Isn't this what you've been dreaming of? Leng Ruoxua reminded him with a smile. Dreams? No way. He did want to be looked up to by the crowd, but definitely not under such circumstances. Right now, he really felt like a monkey in the zoo. The feeling of being surrounded and discussed by all kinds of people was really not good. Let me down. I'm begging you. Elder Chi pulled down his old face and begged. He was well aware that without Leng Ruoxua's orders, no one would have dared to save him. No, I think you look good now. I'm very satisfied. Leng Ruoxua retorted. Then, she shifted her gaze to the other elders and reminded them, you can recognize me as your master now. Thanks. After that, Leng Ruoxua told them about the contract that she was going to sign. It was the one that the parasol tree mother tree had taught her. When the elders heard this, no one dared to disobey. It was because the reality was very clear. Leng Ruoxua could easily take care of them. Furthermore, there was that little kitten that could take care of them all by itself. It was watching them like a tiger watching its prey. How could they still have the thought to resist? The signing of the contract went very smoothly. After becoming one of their own, Leng Ruoxua finally gave the elders a smile and told them that their future work location would still be in Imperial City, and the nature of the work in the Guild of Missions would remain the same. When Miao Jia and the elders heard this, they looked at Leng Ruoxua in surprise. Then, the elders collectively turned their gazes to Miao Jia. Miao Jia had no choice but to bear the brunt of it and asked the question in everyone's heart, young master, we're already your people. It's not good to move around in Yu City under the eyes of Wu Cheng. Moreover, if Rai Mice finds out that we've betrayed them, I'm afraid we'll end up in a terrible state. Miao Jia's words echoed the thoughts of everyone present. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone shifted their gaze back to Leng Ruoxua in unison. The anticipation in their eyes was self-evident. They didn't want to stay in Yu City anymore. This was obvious. Rai Mice doesn't know that you've betrayed us. As long as you don't say it out loud, you'll still belong to the Divine Master's estate. Leng Ruoxua smiled as she consoled him. Ugh! Did the new master want them to? Now, everyone understood. However, such a thing was indeed very dangerous. As long as they were exposed, what awaited them would be death. Master, what should we do with Elder Chi? There's also some of the headquarters' normal staff. These people are not easy to deal with. At this time, an elder who thought of this couldn't help but remind. Can't you guys handle the normal staff? Leng Ruoxue asked in disbelief. We don't have a problem with the ordinary staff, but it's a big problem for Elder Chi. The elder said after some thought. He's even less of a problem. As long as you don't put him down, he won't be able to come down himself. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Elder Chi had said it quite firmly. Hearing this, all the elders looked at Elder Chi, who was hanging on the wall as a mural, with sympathy. Then, that elder said worriedly, "We're afraid that he'll talk nonsense. There are so many people coming and going here. It'll be terrible if something reaches the Divine Master's estate." I see. Why don't we give him some mute medicine so that he can't make a sound? Leng Ruoxue's suggestion was met with deep agreement from the elders. Listening to Leng Ruoxue and the rest talking about how to deal with him, Elder Chi was so depressed that he wished he could faint. However, at this moment, he was full of energy and couldn't faint even if he wanted to. However, the feeling of listening to everyone talking about him was really uncomfortable. Please spare me. I was wrong. I'll recognize you as my master. Elder Chi wanted to cry but had no tears. You're not sincere enough. Leng Ruoxue obviously despised him. Tears streamed down Elder Chi's face, and he wished he could kneel down in front of Leng Ruoxue. Why did the other elders not receive such treatment, but he had to be tortured like this? It was not fair. This is not fair. It was extremely unfair to him. The furious Elder Chi made up his mind and said with tears streaming down his face, "Then what do you want? Just tell me." Chapter 27-21, I don't need you to give in. 3. Didn't I say that you're not sincere? Leng Ruoxue looked at Elder Chi as if she was looking at an idiot. Then, she bade goodbye to Miao Jia and the rest before turning around and leaving the meeting hall. Don't go. Don't go. Come back. Woo-woo, put me down. Elder Chi begged in pain, but all he could see was Leng Ruoxue's back. Seeing Leng Ruoxue leave without any hesitation, Elder Chi had no choice but to turn his resentful gaze to Miao Jia. He pleaded softly, President, help me put in a few good words and get that little ancestor to agree to let me down." Woo-woo, Miao Jia felt great listening to Elder Chi, who had always liked to find trouble, begging him. He could not deny that he was very relieved to see Elder Chi's current state. However, as a person of high status, his thoughts could not be seen in the light. Therefore, he looked at Elder Chi with a pained expression and said helplessly, Elder Chi. It's not that I want to criticize you, but you know that my master is not to be trifled with, so why did you have to throw an egg at a rock? AI. Master is currently in a fit of anger, so I don't dare to speak up for you. After he finished speaking, Miao Jia supported his father and turned around to leave. Seeing that the new master and the president had left, the elders and branch presidents were naturally unwilling to stay any longer. Moreover, they had more important things to do. For example, the people around the president. They really didn't recognize those people, so they thought of asking Miao Jia in private. After a while, Elder Chi was the only one left in the large meeting hall. Put me down. Put me down. Elder Chi's unyielding voice echoed in the spacious meeting hall, but no one responded to him. The next day, Miao Jia came over excitedly to tell Leng Ruoxue that he had told the elders about the identities of Miao Yuan and the others. The elders were all extremely surprised and wanted to hold a celebratory banquet for their father and the others. They had specially invited Leng Ruoxue to attend. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she gave it some thought and still reminded him honestly, Miao Jia, I don't mind if you want to hold a banquet, but what I want to tell you is that Miao Yuan and the others cannot stay in the headquarters like this. Otherwise, if they are discovered by the Ripple Mist bitch, it will bring danger to all of you. Then what should we do? Miao Jia immediately panicked when he heard that. There are two choices. One is that I bring them back to Demon City, and the other is that I give them some disguise pills. You let them think about it. Leng Ruoxue gave him two options. Thank you, young master. Miao Jie said gratefully. The celebration banquet was held as scheduled. Before the banquet, Miao Jie did not mention this to them. However, once the banquet ended, he immediately told Miao Yuan and the others about Leng Ruoxue's suggestion. After Miao Yuan and the others heard this, they all decided to disguise themselves and stay in Yu City after careful consideration. After all, this was their root and their home. They could not bear to leave. As for not being able to show their true faces, they didn't care. In any case, Fogg wouldn't think that those people were them, because the prison had been arranged by the young master. They believed that it wouldn't be long before Fogg would receive the news of their death. However, they were worried about their identity. After all, there would always be so many people on the mission at once, which would make people suspicious, and Fogg was suspicious by nature. However, Miao Jie calmly told them that they didn't need to worry about this matter. As the president of the Missions Guild, it was easy for him to arrange fake identities for them. However, they had to put on a full show. Before this matter was completely confirmed, they had to remain invisible for a period of time and not appear in Yu City openly. Miao Yuan and the rest immediately agreed to Miao Jie's plan. Just like that, the issue of Miao Yuan and the others' identities was easily resolved. Leng Ruoxue had also completed the mission that the headquarters had taken in. She was prepared to return home with the large amount of resources that Miao Jie had handed in. Of course, she did not forget about Elder Qi before she left. She went to see Elder Qi and told the old man that she was leaving. When Elder Qi heard this, he immediately burst into tears and shouted that he wanted to recognize him as his master. However, his voice was weak. It was obvious that he had been tortured to the point of a mental breakdown in just a short period of time. This time, Leng Ruoxue didn't make things difficult for him. She really didn't want to waste any more time in Yu City. When Elder Qi heard this, he immediately acknowledged her as his master. He didn't need Leng Ruoxue to tell him about the master recognition contract because he had heard it clearly when Leng Ruoxue had told the other elders. The moment the contract was formed, Elder Qi's heart that had been in his throat for a long time finally relaxed. However, when Leng Ruoxue rescued him from the wall, Elder Qi was still bawling his eyes out. He sighed seriously. He no longer wanted to be a mural and no longer wanted to be looked up to by others. The feeling of being looked up to was really not good. Sob. He should just be an honest elder. Furthermore, he could tell that Leng Ruoxue was different from other masters. If he wanted to cause any more trouble, Leng Ruoxue would definitely not allow him to do so. One had to admit that Elder Qi had grown up. After settling this last matter, Leng Ruoxue then carried Song and left the headquarters as if there was no one else around. On the way to the city gates, Leng Ruoxue met the three reverent god-level experts from the Divine Master's estate by chance. They stared at each other for a long time, but none of them said a word. They then separated. Thanks, however, Leng Ruoxue didn't ignore the few gazes that were fixed on her from behind. But she was very calm and walked to the city gate with elegant steps. When he was less than 100 meters away from the city gate, the leader of the city guards saw him at a glance. It wasn't because he had good eyesight, but because Leng Ruoxue was too eye-catching. He couldn't even pretend not to see her. He ran towards Leng Ruoxue excitedly. The head guard's face was flushed red as he asked, "Miss Leng, are we leaving the city?" This was great. He was finally going to send this demon away. Only the heavens knew how worried he had been these days. The leader of the guards was so happy that he almost danced with joy. However, it was a pity that Leng Ruoxue revealed a cheeky smile to the head guard and told him that she wasn't going out of the city and was just going for a stroll. The guard leader's face fell when he heard that. When Leng Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but feign sadness and asked, "You can't wait for me to leave? You don't welcome me?" She looked hurt. "And no." The leader of the guards denied shyly. However, he could not deceive his own heart because he really did not welcome Leng Ruoxue. This woman was too troublesome. He was another time bomb that might explode at any moment. He really didn't want to experience those days of fear anymore. Lying is not good behavior. AI. Forget it, I won't make things difficult for you. Since I'm so unwelcomed, I'd better leave first. After saying this, Leng Ruoxue walked towards the city gates with a sad look on her face. However, she had only taken 2 steps when Leng Ruoxue turned around and said, "But I'll be back." Initially, when the guard leader heard that Leng Ruoxue was leaving, he was overjoyed. However, before he could be happy for long, he heard that she would return. His overjoyed expression immediately froze on his face, and his half-smile expression looked a little distorted. Leng Ruoxue glanced at the guard leader's stiff expression and continued with a smile, "Why, are you very disappointed?" After saying this, Leng Ruoxue finally left. However, even though Leng Ruoxue's back view could no longer be seen, the guard's body was still stiff. His heart was in a mess and he could not calm down. Leng Ruoxue couldn't care less about how conflicted the guard's thoughts were because it didn't take long for Tsang to teleport her back to the land of demons. At this moment, the land of demons could be considered a real city. In the days that she was away, the construction of Demon City had advanced by leaps and bounds. By the time she returned, the construction of the entire base had been completed. As she looked at the grand and magnificent Demon City, Leng Ruoxue's mood was exceptionally high. However, her happiness did not last long before she was discovered by Uncle Long and the others. What awaited her was naturally the merciless judgment of the crowd. Sitting in the living room, Leng Ruoxue felt uneasy as she looked at Uncle Long, Godfather, and the rest who had unfriendly expressions. Don't look at how she was imposing in front of outsiders, but in front of these people she saw as family, she couldn't be tough at all. Therefore, from the moment she sat down in the living room, she was like an obedient baby. She lowered her head obediently and did not say a word, waiting for the crowd to flip out. At the same time, she couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, her grandfather and brothers went into seclusion after meeting Li Zhong and the others. Otherwise, she would have a hard time explaining herself. Speak. After drinking a mouthful of tea, the master of the Ning family said lightly. Hee, Godfather, Uncle Long, you've worked hard. Leng Ruoxue said with a fawning smile. I didn't ask you to say this. Master Ning said through gritted teeth. Then what should I say? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but play dumb. Looking at how unfriendly her godfather and the rest were, how could she dare to say that she had provoked that bitch from the Ripple Mist? Even if she had no choice. However, she believed that even if she didn't say anything, her godfather and the others would have found out. However, she still couldn't take the initiative to tell him. Where have you been? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue wasn't being honest, Master Ning could only ask her himself. Tsang, where did we all go? Leng Ruoxue didn't dare to answer directly and could only lower her head to ask Tsang. Tsang helplessly pouted and deeply despised Leng Ruoxue's cowardice. Was there a need to be so secretive? After we left the Ascender Alliance, we went to find trouble with the Ripple Mist bitch. Tsang Rushi said. After he finished speaking, he even gave Leng Ruoxue a look of disdain. Leng Ruoxue smiled awkwardly and added, I didn't know about this beforehand. That's right, I forced Neo to go. If you want to find trouble, come find me. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue was obviously trying to shirk her responsibility, Tsang was furious. He turned his spear and shouted at Master Ning and the rest. However, that was the truth. Hence, Tsang Huo was not really angry at Leng Ruoxue. Chapter 27-22, Shuer, did you miss me too? 1. Hearing Tsang's angry words, everyone fell silent. Looking for trouble with Tsang? Did they dare to? Tsang could send these reverent god-level experts flying with one kick. Moreover, they didn't really want to investigate Shuer's disappearance. They just wanted Shuer to value them. Woo! Tsang is too bad. By saying this, it was obvious that it didn't want them to find trouble with the bad girl Schwer. The few people present were very unwilling. But they couldn't beat Sung, so they could only suffer in silence. Unwillingly, Uncle Long was the first to change his mind. Hee. How would we dare to find trouble with you? Besides, we're not blaming Schwer, it's just that if there's something fun, you should also think of us. It doesn't feel good to let us old men wait at home like idiots without knowing anything. What Uncle Long meant was that if something like this happened in the future, they shouldn't forget about them. They also wanted to participate. But after hearing this, Sung asked, "I'll tell you, do you have time to go and join in the fun? We're not building Demon City anymore." "Ah. I'm talking about the future," Uncle Long added. "That's right, you can't leave us behind if something like this happens again in the future. We're also participating," Master Ning said after looking at Leng Ruoxue with a bitter expression. "Yes, we also want to see how unlucky Wu Chen is. However, I heard your voice in the sky that day. I wonder what good things you did?" Dongfang Lin asked curiously. He remembered that the voice had said two things. One was the petal of the mist ripple bitch, and the other was the blood lotus flower. They already knew what the mist ripple petal meant, but they didn't know what the blood lotus flower meant. "I sold the petal of the mist ripple bitch for 2 jingshi, and then I snatched the blood lotus flower that could heal her. That's all," Azure casually said. "Ah. Can you be more detailed?" Uncle Long asked anxiously. They had been making wild guesses about the blood lotus flower for a long time. Seeing everyone's eyes filled with anticipation, Azure stretched out his little paw and patted the petals of the red flower on his chest, saying softly, "Little blood, say hello to everyone." At this moment, the incomparably beautiful blood lotus became coy. It extended a branch and wrapped it around Azure's small claw, shaking it silently. It was unknown what it was saying to Azure. Azure didn't say a word, and the beast and flower seemed to be communicating. Uncle Long and the others held their breaths and looked at this scene in a daze. No one dared to interrupt the communication between Sung and the red flower. What surprised them even more was that they had known Sung for so long, and other than seeing it treat Schwer gently, they had never seen it treat anyone so gently. Ugh! Although it was an exaggeration to use tender as water, the feeling that Sung gave them now was very. After staring at Sung and that little red flower for a while, Uncle Long and the rest felt a little embarrassed. They could only twist their stiff necks and turn to look at Leng Ruoxue. Who knew that Schwer would have a helpless and matter-of-fact expression, obviously used to such things. A few extremely bored elderly men who wanted to gossip quietly approached Schwer and asked in a low voice, "Girl, what's going on with them?" Seeing that Uncle Long and the rest had also noticed the difference between Dian Sung and the blood lotus flower, Leng Ruoxue explained with an evil smile, "They have a relationship that goes beyond friendship." Ugh! As they listened to Schwer's obscure words, the few old men were confused. They didn't know what a relationship beyond friendship was. What was this good? "Thanks, Schwer, what do you mean?" The master of the Ning family asked shamelessly. It was a good quality to ask without shame. "About the same as me and the demon," Leng Ruoxue explained. Uncle Long and the others finally understood. As expected, there was something. They knew it. Why did Sung suddenly kidnap Schwer for no reason? So it was to save his little lover. A hero saving a beauty. Everything could be explained now. It was forgivable to go through fire and water for a beauty. Uncle Long and the others thought about it randomly and found an excuse for not daring to cause trouble for Tsang. Leng Ruoxue looked at their expressions and knew what Uncle Long and the others were thinking. However, she didn't care what they were thinking. She only knew that with Tsang's matter, they would forget about her. This was what she wanted. And the truth was just as Leng Ruoxue had thought. Now that they'd discovered spring, Uncle Long and the others couldn't be bothered to find trouble with Schwer. They were even imagining when they would be able to drink Shang Tsung's wedding wine. They had to admit that they were so bored recently that their hair was about to grow out. However, don't think that Azure didn't know what these disrespectful old men were thinking. It was just too lazy to pay attention to them and focused on coaxing the suddenly shy blood lotus. With great difficulty, the blood lotus flower was finally coaxed and greeted everyone in a childish voice. Hello. After saying this, the blood lotus flower fell silent again and buried its tender petals into Azure's arms. When everyone saw a flower acting coquettishly towards a cat, the corners of their mouths twitched uncontrollably. They quickly adjusted their expressions and said enthusiastically, "Hello, little red flower." "It's called Little Blood," Sung coldly corrected. "Ah. Hello, Little Blood." Everyone greeted him again. However, this also allowed them to fully understand the position of this flower in Senior Tsang's heart. Little Blood didn't respond. At this time, everyone heard Tsang coldly say, "Put away your dirty thoughts. Little Blood and I are not what you think." After coaxing Little Blood, Azure finally had the time to explain. However, in the eyes of the crowd, its explanation was obviously a cover-up. Therefore, although everyone nodded their heads in understanding on the surface, they did not believe its words in their hearts. However, Tsang didn't mind. He greeted Leng Ruoxue and had Niu send them into the bracelet. Leng Ruoxue naturally did as she was told. Actually, she had long wanted to send the blood lotus flower in. However, neither the Azure Sea nor the blood lotus flower had the intention to do so, so she was too embarrassed to mention it. After sending Tsang away, Leng Ruoxue became the target of Uncle Long and the others. They continued to ask her what she had been doing during this period of time. Leng Ruoxue was helpless and could only report everything that she and Tsang had done during this period of time. But luckily, Uncle Long and the others were not angry this time. However, when Uncle Long and the others heard of Leng Ruoxue and Tsang's actions, they were still greatly shocked. They had never thought that this man and beast would actually run to the imperial city and accept the mission headquarters. If this matter was known by Wu Yan, she would definitely vomit blood. Schwer, well done. After listening to Leng Ruoxue's words for a long time, Dong Fangyu, who had been silent all this while, finally opened his mouth. Chapter 27-23, Schwer, did you miss me too? 2. As Leng Ruoxue listened to his words, her forehead was filled with black lines. She couldn't help but feel disgusted. This old man's reflex arc is really unusually long. Then, everyone helplessly braced themselves as they listened to Dong Fangyu go on and on about the quest headquarters and the God Lord's estate. Dong Fangyu's saliva flew everywhere as he spoke. He couldn't help but dance when he got to the most emotional part. In the end, no one knew how long he spoke, but everyone was sleepy after listening to him. With much difficulty, Dong Fang was getting tired from talking and stopped to take a sip of water. Leng Ruoxue saw this and immediately stood up. I'm finally done. I'm going back to my room to rest. Once she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue left without any sense of loyalty. Uncle Long and the rest didn't hesitate either and immediately followed. In the blink of an eye, only Dong Fangyu was left in the large living room, still holding a teacup in a drinking posture. Dong Fangyu was very depressed. He hadn't finished his words yet. All of them actually ran away. AI. Young people nowadays. Why didn't he want to listen to some history? After complaining to himself, he also returned to his room gloomily. Leng Ruoxue, who had just left the living room, went straight into the bangle after returning to her room. However, the moment she entered the bangle, she noticed a strong smell of gunpowder filling the space. Ugh! What was going on? Leng Ruoxue, who was puzzled, walked into the garden elegantly. The moment she stepped into the beautiful garden, she saw the two little fellows, Tsang and Green Vessel, confronting each other. Tsang stood calmly in front of Green Vessel, while Green Vessel put his hands on his waist and looked fierce. What's wrong? Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask curiously. Girl, he won't let me plant the little blood in the flower garden. Azure was the first to complain. Sister, I'm doing this for the good of the space. That flower's personality was too strong, it really wasn't suitable to be planted here. At least not now. Qing Ju said as if he was defending his territory. I didn't expect to be so unpopular. At this moment, the red flower also said with a bitter expression. After listening to the words of the three little fellows, Len Ruoxue finally managed to sort out some of her thoughts. Girl, don't listen to him. The blood lotus flower can be planted here. Before Len Ruoxue could speak, Tsang immediately spoke. You bastard. I knew you didn't have a good heart. You want to cause the space to collapse, don't you? When Qing Ju heard this, he immediately roared in anger. Why don't you just say that you're too weak now? Tsang scoffed at Green Vessel's words. You, Qing Ju was so angry that his cute little face turned red. Then, he turned his head and looked at Len Ruoxue with tears in his eyes. Sister, why did you let this bad guy in? He's bullying me. Sob. I'm so pitiful. I'm being bullied by a cat in my own territory. This was really too unreasonable. Oh heavens. Send down a divine lightning and strike me to death. The despair on Qing Ju's face made Len Ruoxue's face turn black. Helpless, Len Ruoxue could only carry Qing Ju and cajole, Qing Ju, don't cry. It's all your sister's fault for being so useless. It's because your sister's strength is too low that you can't recover your strength from your peak. AI. It's all my sister's fault. I've decided that I'll work hard in the future and master the heaven-defying art to its full potential. That way, you'll be able to break the last seal. Len Ruoxue thought that Qing Ju would feel better after hearing her words, but who knew that Qing Ju would cry even harder after hearing her words? He choked out, how can you blame sister for this? The 9th level of the heaven-defying art isn't that easy to break through, I will work hard. Len Ruoxue promised. Thanks, yes, as long as sister does her best, it's fine. The path of cultivation is a heaven-defying act, so there's no rush. Hearing Len Ruoxue's promise, Qing Ju started to comfort her. What a master-servant relationship. At this moment, an extremely discordant voice suddenly rang out. Len Ruoxue instantly felt the surrounding temperature drop by quite a bit. Then, she caught a glimpse of Tsang's dark face and his eyes that were spitting fire, staring at her fiercely. Len Ruoxue's heart trembled. Could it be that Tsang was jealous? This wasn't a fun thing to do. Len Ruoxue was a little scared, but it was clear that Green Vessel was not an easy person to get along with. Of course, she would not let go of any opportunity to deal a blow to Tsang. She smiled and said, that's right. My relationship with my sister is not something that a latecomer like you can compare to. I'm finished. This was definitely the beginning of a fight. Len Ruoxue was so worried that her heart was in her throat. All of a sudden, she regretted it. Why did she let these two little fellows get together? She was asking for it. No wonder people said that one would not die if they did not seek death. She was one now. Len Ruoxue wanted to cry but had no tears. With a change of thought, she moved the azure and blood lotus flower out of the bangle. Since only Green Vessel was left, he naturally would not look for trouble. He smiled at Len Ruoxue and said, Sister, you can play by yourself. I'm going to work. Qing Ju was very happy. I shouldn't have let that damn cat in. However, that silly cat had a way to hide her aura, so he couldn't stop her. But now, with the blood lotus flower, if that guy wanted to come in, no way. At the very least, he couldn't let them harm his land. At the thought of this, Qing Ju reminded Len Ruoxue cautiously, Elder sister, it's not that I'm being stingy, but the space right now simply can't withstand the violent chi of that blood lotus flower. That flower has just gained sentience, so it can't control its own chi at all. Therefore, letting it live in here will only do more harm than good to the space. I understand. Len Ruoxue nodded and left the bracelet. Len Ruoxue's head started to hurt when she thought about the other guy outside who could be extremely violent. However, when she got out of the bracelet, she didn't find any trace of Tsang. Where did Tsang go? Leng Ruoxue was a little scared. If she didn't pacify that little fellow, she really couldn't guarantee what Tsang would do. She was so scared that she started to search everywhere. But the result was disappointing. The group searched for a long time, even going through Demon City several times, but they still did not find a palm-sized, snow-white kitten. AI. Leng Ruoxue was really anxious now, and she couldn't stop sighing. Shuer, what's going on? Shouldn't Tsang be in the space? Uncle Long was puzzled. How long had it been? How did Senior Tsang disappear again? Leng Ruoxue sighed again before telling Uncle Long and the others everything. When everyone heard this, they were all speechless. It turned out that a certain cat had run away from home because of jealousy. Wait a minute. Run away from home? Oh my God. This was no small matter. Who knew what a certain cat would do in a fit of anger? No matter how everyone thought about it, they all felt that the situation was very serious. They understood Azure's personality too well. That fellow was not someone who could be wronged. Moreover, this grievance was given to him by Shuer. Chapter 27-24, Shuer, did you miss me too? 3. At the thought of this, Uncle Long looked at Leng Ruoxue with a look of deep sympathy. Then, he sighed and said, Shuer, actually, you don't have to worry too much. It's probably just a momentary rage. Who knows, it might come back tomorrow. AI. I hope so. Leng Ruoxue did not think that it would be so easy. Tsang had always been willful, and this time, he had completely angered it. However, she didn't want everyone to be too worried, so she could only give them a perfunctory look. And the truth was exactly as Leng Ruoxue had thought. Azure didn't return at all. It wasn't just one day, but several days in a row. This time, everyone had to admit that things were really serious. Not long after, news from the Divine Realm had reached the City of Demons. The Imperial City was attacked by unknown people, and all the walls had collapsed. Leng Ruoxue and the rest didn't even need to guess to know that the unknown person in the legends was definitely Tsang. AI. Leng Ruoxue, who was in the living room, had already sighed countless times. Uncle Long and the others didn't say a word. They really didn't know what to say. Fortunately, the God Lord's estate was the unlucky one this time. Otherwise, if Tsang came to Demon City and wreaked havoc, they would not be able to stop him. When they thought of this, Uncle Long and the others were extremely glad. Even if Tsang was angry, he could still distinguish between inside and outside. Shuer, we have to find Senior Tsang as soon as possible. The longer we delay, the angrier Senior Tsang will be. After thinking about it, Master Ning couldn't help but remind him. Of course I know, but I haven't thought of how to coax it. Leng Ruoxue said gloomily. If she had known, she would have gone to the God-protecting pagoda long ago. But you can't just close your eyes. I'm afraid Senior Tsang will be even angrier if you act like this. The master of the Ning family was speechless, but it was rare to see Shuer being afraid of wolves in front and tigers in the back, and also hesitant. But when he thought of Tsang's bad temper, he didn't have the mood to watch a good show. How about you guys help me think? Leng Ruoxue probed. However, when everyone heard her words, they shook their heads in unison. They couldn't figure it out either. Tsang clearly felt that Shuer was biased towards Qingju. Otherwise, he would not have left home in a fit of anger. AI. It's not easy. Leng Ruoxue also knew that things were difficult to handle. At this moment, she suddenly missed Evildoer a lot. If the demon was here, he would definitely have a way to deal with the angry Tsang. As if he had sensed something, the demon, who was in a very low mood in the Nine Nether prison, suddenly had a bright light flash in his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Shuer, are you thinking of me too? Not far away, the servants who were carefully keeping a distance from the evildoer but did not dare to go too far in case their lord summoned them. When they saw their lord suddenly smile, they immediately heaved sighs of relief. How long has it been? He finally saw his lord smile. Although his lord had always been very serious, he had never been surrounded by an endless low pressure like this. This oppressive aura had even spread to the entire Nine Nether prison, causing everyone in the Nine Nether prison to be very careful and not dare to breathe. Men! Suddenly, the demon shouted. The servant closest to him quickly ran to the demon and said in a low voice, "Please give your orders, master." "Find Mu Li for me." The demon said anxiously. "Yes. Yes," the servant replied and then disappeared. Not long after, Mu Li, who had heard the news from his master, came. Seeing that his lord was in a good mood, Mu Li also relaxed. He asked with a faint smile, "My lord, is there something good?" "Shuai must be missing me," the demon said matter-of-factly. When Mu Li heard this, he didn't know how to react for a moment. What do you mean by should be? Is his lord not sure? Then why did his lord order him to come? What does master need Mu Li to do? Although she was very puzzled, Mu Li knew that her lord would not call her over for no reason. After all, her lord had forbidden them from disturbing her these days. Find a way to contact Minga and the others, the demon ordered indifferently. My lord, I've been trying my best, but as you know, the rules of heaven and earth are hindering me. It'll be difficult for me to contact them, Mu Li said helplessly. Detestable rules of heaven and earth. One day, it'll beat you up so badly that even your mother won't be able to recognize you. When the demon heard this, he furiously roared at the sky. Hearing this, Mu Li couldn't help but feel a little speechless. Were there any mothers to the rules of heaven and earth? If there was, it should be chaos, right? Based on this calculation, wouldn't the regulations of the heaven and earth and their master be brothers? As soon as Mu Li thought this, a bolt of lightning as thick as a baby's arm suddenly fell from the sky. It happened to be in the direction where he was standing. Mu Li couldn't dodge in time and was directly struck by the lightning. In an instant, his entire body was charred black, and he even gave off the smell of something being burnt. Thanks fuck. He really bullied the weak and feared the strong. The one who cursed the rules of heaven and earth was his lord, so why did he strike him? Mu Li was very angry, but he didn't dare to show it. He looked at his master with a face full of resentment. His eyes were filled with tears, as if he was accusing himself of being his master's cannon fodder. However, the evildoer did not feel guilty. He calmly looked at Mu Li, who was completely black, and continued to instruct, "You have to think of a way. In short, no matter how long it takes, you have to contact him, understand?" "Yes," Mu Li quickly responded. Then, seeing that his lord had no other instructions, he immediately took his leave and went back to clean up his image. He really couldn't see anyone in his current state. After Mu Li left, the demons started to worry again and continued to release cold air. The surrounding temperature dropped several degrees in an instant. The attendants burst into tears. At the same time, Len Ruoxue was also in a sorrowful mood. Uncle Long and the others didn't know how to comfort her, so they could only accompany her in silence. A few days passed by in a flash. During this period, the Ascender Alliance's alliance master had been looking for an opportunity to talk to Len Ruoxue. However, when he saw that everyone seemed to be anxious about something, he was too embarrassed to speak. Hence, he decided to stay in Demon City for a while. Half a month later, Len Ruoxue had finally made up her mind to look for Tsang. When Uncle Long and the others heard her decision, they almost applauded and cheered. You bastard! They did not wish to continue living such boring days. Furthermore, many of their matters in Demon City had been delayed due to Cher's bad mood. Fortunately, Cher had finally come around. Just as Uncle Long and the rest were about to say a few words to encourage Len Ruoxue to be brave and confess her sins to Tsang, Len Ruoxue suddenly said to everyone, "I hope some of you can come with me." Woo! She was afraid of returning home and didn't dare face Tsang's anger alone. When Uncle Long and the others heard this bad news, they all burst into tears. This matter. Would it be of any use if they went? After thinking for a while, under the encouraging gazes of the crowd, Uncle Long bit the bullet and said with a bit of difficulty, "Shuai, there's no problem for us to go with you, but do you think Senior Tsang would be happy to see us? If it knew that you didn't dare to see it alone and wanted us to accompany you, would it be even angrier?" They would. Leng Ruoxu's face was covered in tears. With her understanding of Tsang, he definitely would. Moreover, she hadn't gone to find Tsang for so many days, so Tsang's anger had probably accumulated to an unimaginable degree. Woo! If she didn't seek death, she wouldn't die. Once again, Leng Ruoxu understood the profound meaning behind this sentence. In the end, under the sympathetic gazes of Uncle Long and the others, Leng Ruoxu left Demon City and headed to the God-protecting tower to look for Tsang. Seeing that Leng Ruoxu was finally willing to face reality, Uncle Long and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. One had to know that during this period of time, their days were also not good. He had to sigh with Shuai every day. This kind of life was really not for humans. Now, they were finally free. Uncle Long and the others cheered. They were happy, but Leng Ruoxu's heart was extremely heavy. The closer she got to the God-protecting tower, the heavier her mood became. When she finally stood at the entrance of the God-protecting tower, she did not dare to go in. After pacing outside the God-protection tower for a long time, Leng Ruoxu kept thinking about how to speak to Tsang when she saw him. In fact, she had already thought of many plans, but she was not satisfied with them. And just as she was hesitating about when to enter, someone struck up a conversation with her. The person who struck up a conversation was a young man who had just rolled out of the God-protecting pagoda. When he saw Leng Ruoxu, he hurriedly got up from the ground in a sorry state. Then, his face revealed an extremely shocked expression. After tidying up his appearance, the man then calmly walked forward and asked, "Young miss, do you also want to enter the God-protecting pagoda for the trial?" Of course she wasn't. Leng Ruoxu was silent for a moment. She had no intention of acknowledging this fellow who was trying to get close to her. However, that man clearly did not recognize Leng Ruoxu and even took her silence as consent. He continued to speak to himself, "I'm telling you, this God-protecting pagoda's trial is not easy to pass. I've been here for many years, but I've never succeeded." The man couldn't help but sigh as he spoke. When Leng Ruoxu heard this, she thought to herself, "If you succeed, won't you become the owner of the God-protecting pagoda?" She was very clear that because not many people knew about her relationship with Azure, and it was almost never made public, there were still many people who were unwilling to give up and thought that there would be great opportunities coming to the trial. Azure did not stop these people from advancing one after another, and instead took pleasure in it. The person she was looking at now was just one of them. Leng Ruoxu didn't want to pour cold water on such a persistent person. Hence, she remained silent. Who knew that the man would think that Leng Ruoxu was afraid after hearing his words and even consoled her, "But you don't have to worry too much. I've already concluded my experience in this trial. If you need it, I can pass it on to you for free." The man's words were very sincere, but Leng Ruoxu did not believe that there would be free lunch in the world. Hence, she rejected him tactfully, "Thank you, but I don't need it." With that, Leng Ruoxu did not give the man any more chances to strike up a conversation and walked straight into the God-protecting pagoda. Chapter 27-25, The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan, 1. After entering the God-protecting pagoda, Leng Ruoxu suddenly realized that in order to avoid being hit on, she had actually forgotten to be timid and had entered just like that. But this was good, at least it saved her from hesitating. "Azure, are you there?" Leng Ruoxu, who had calmed down very quickly, called out softly. "No." An angry voice replied in an unpleasant tone. Leng Ruoxu broke out in a cold sweat when she heard the word "not around." This was clearly Azure's voice, and he wasn't there. Was it a ghost that was not replying? "Tsang, I know you're here." Leng Ruoxu was about to say something nice, but before she could finish her sentence, she realized that she was in another place. She was no stranger to this place. This was Azure's control center. A little white kitten was lying on the recliner and staring at her angrily. The little red flower was playing alone on the other side of the chair. It was rare to see a flower playing around. Cold sweat dripped from Leng Ruox's forehead. Then, she looked at Sung and said gently, Azure, I'm here to take you home. Home? This is my home. Sung's entire body exuded a faint sorrow, forming a sharp contrast with his previous appearance of anger. Who said that Demon City is also your home? Leng Ruoxue walked closer to Tsang and gently stroked Tsang's soft fur as she tried to please him. Oh, really? Then how could you treat me like this? You're biased. Azure Fire complained, and the sorrow on his body was instantly replaced by anger. Instantly, he became a little cat with its fur standing on end. Leng Ruoxue felt her head throb, but she still had to explain. Tsang, I'm not biased. In my heart, you and Qing Ju are equally important. Leng Ruoxue tried to placate him. Really? Then why did you only move me out of that broken bracelet? Tsang's eyes drooped and he said worriedly. Ugh. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but wipe her cold sweat. If I don't move you out, am I supposed to move Green Vessel out? That's someone else's territory, so of course they can only move an outsider like you. Leng Ruoxue carefully phrased her words, Tsang, the bracelet originally belonged to Green Vessel, so I had no choice but to move you outside. Otherwise, I'm really afraid that the two of you will fight. In addition, after I moved you out, I immediately came out as well, but you and the Blood Lotus Flower were both gone. These words made Leng Ruoxue feel a little resentful. She wanted to let Azure know that she cared about it a lot. In fact, even if she didn't say this, Azure was also well aware of this. Just like in the God Guardian Tower, in order to keep both sides calm, the one who would be driven out would definitely be an outsider. However, it couldn't get over this in its heart. It felt that Nyo was biased. Especially when Green Vessel showed off to it that it had known Nyo for a long time. This was even more intolerable. What's the big deal? Didn't he just get to know Nyo a few days ago? Was there a need to be so smug? Tsang's heart was extremely unbalanced. Thanks, girl, then tell me now, in your heart, who is more important, me or that broken bracelet? You're all important. Leng Ruoxue hated this kind of multiple-choice question the most. No matter who she offended, she would be the unlucky one. We're not allowed to be important. You have to choose one. Azure didn't like this answer and angrily demanded. Tsang, I'm telling the truth. You're all the most important people to me, and there's no order to your ranking. Leng Ruoxue explained patiently. Just like my grandfather, my brother, and the rest, you are all my family. If you really want to fight, I will be the one in a difficult position. Tsang, you don't want me to be in a difficult position, right? Leng Ruoxue continued and pleaded pitifully. Did I make things difficult for you? When Azure heard this, he narrowed his eyes and said with an unkind expression. No, I didn't. No. Why would Tsang make things difficult for me? Leng Ruoxue immediately tried to please him. That's more like it. However, we haven't settled the score between us yet. I won't forgive you so easily. Seeing this, Tsang reminded. The moment Leng Ruoxue heard this, she felt her head throb. After coming here, seeing that Tsang didn't ignore her, Leng Ruoxue thought that Tsang would be fine after some coaxing. Who knew that this little guy was still angry? Sigh. She was simply helpless. Tsang, what can I do to make you not angry? Leng Ruoxue sighed softly and coaxed him. I can't help but be angry. You actually took so long to come and coax me. Tsang Yaojiao said. After he finished speaking, he even turned his little head. His cute and adorable appearance made Leng Ruoxue's heart flutter. Tsang's current appearance was really too cute. The moment she thought of this, Leng Ruoxue's hands could not help but stroke Tsang's soft and smooth fur again. She praised, hee hee. Azure is too cute. Humph. Azure put on a noble and cold appearance and snorted coldly, but in his heart, he couldn't help but be secretly happy. In fact, he was deliberately acting like this because he knew very well that Nyo had no resistance to cute little animals. And Nyo's performance made it quite satisfied. In fact, ever since it left Demon City in a fit of anger, it had some regrets in its heart, but it couldn't bring itself to return by itself. Thus, it had been waiting in the Guardian Tower for Nyo to come and find it. Who knew that time would pass day by day, and it had almost become a stone to look for Nyo, but Nyo still hadn't come. Such a fact caused the anger in its heart to accumulate. It even secretly swore in its heart that it would never easily forgive this hateful girl. However, when it saw Ling Ruoxue for itself, it realized that its anger had miraculously subsided. This made its heart feel rather unbalanced. On what basis? Nyo made it angry, made it sad. Why would it forgive Nyo so quickly? The result of this thought was that it became tsundere. It was like a child throwing a tantrum. The moment it saw Ling Ruoxue, it kept on acting tsundere. Furthermore, its entire body was exuding a hurry up and coax me. The aura. Naturally, Ling Ruoxue did not let it down. She began to coax it patiently. Sung, who enjoyed being pampered, didn't admit that he had forgiven Nyo. Ling Ruoxue could only say all kinds of good things and even promised many unfair conditions before Tsang was finally not angry anymore. Seeing how sincere you are, I'll forgive you. Azure said with a magnanimous look. Thank you. Ling Ruoxue was so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. She truly felt that it wasn't easy for her. Luckily, Tsang didn't make things too difficult for her. Before she came here, she had thought that Tsang would have many different reactions. At this moment, she truly felt that Tsang was very kind. What's there to thank? If you weren't the one who made me angry, I wouldn't be able to forgive you so quickly. Humph. If it dares to offend me, I'll consider it a light punishment if I don't kill it. Azure warned. Ugh. If trying to kill the other party was considered a light punishment, then what was considered a heavy punishment? Even though Ling Ruoxue was very curious about this, she did not dare to ask. After that, she took the initiative to change the topic. Tsang, let's go home. Chapter 27-26, The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan. 2. I can go home, but what about Little Blood? Cold pointed at Little Blood, who was happily playing alone. How about I find a place in the garden for it to stay? Ling Ruoxue tried to probe. The garden? How can you let Little Blood live in that kind of place? When Cold heard this, he was furious again. Ling Ruoxue broke out in a cold sweat. What was wrong with the garden? It was much better than the barren mountain where the blood lotus flower had once lived. Of course, he definitely couldn't say this out loud, or else he would definitely burst away. Why don't you pick a place? Ling Ruoxue gave the choice to Tsang. Let Little Blood live in the garden of your house. There's plenty of spiritual qi there, which is good for Little Blood's growth. Tsang said with some hesitation before adding, actually, the most suitable place is still inside that broken bracelet. Azure, that place shouldn't be able to withstand Little Blood's aura. Ling Ruoxue reminded him carefully, afraid that Tsang would think that she was biased towards Qingju. However, this time, Azure wasn't angry, he just said somewhat unhappily, humph. It's not that I can't take it, but I'm afraid that Xiao Shue's condition might be unstable. Such a situation would happen to treasures that had just developed intelligence. Because they were still too young, sometimes they couldn't control their own aura at all. In addition, the blood lotus flower was very special and not an ordinary treasure of heaven and earth. So, in fact, the broken bracelet's worries were not without reason. It just didn't want to admit it. Was there a difference? After Ling Ruoxue heard Tsang's words, she madly wiped away her sweat and remained silent. Just let it live in your house. Wait until Little Blood can control his breath before entering the broken bracelet. Azure confirmed. After Ling Ruoxue heard this, she could finally put her heart at ease. After settling Sang's matter, Len Ruoxue returned to Demon City with great confidence. When Uncle Long and the others saw that Len Ruoxue had returned alone, a look of pity appeared on their faces. Everyone chimed in and he consoled Len Ruoxue, telling her not to be anxious. He even said that one day, he would be able to coax Sang. Len Ruoxue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, when she finished listening to everyone's consoling and told Uncle Long and the others that Sang had been coaxed, the expressions on everyone's faces were wonderful. They had expressed their feelings wrongly. How embarrassing. Uncle Long and the others smiled awkwardly and changed the topic. Sure, since everything's fine now, we can officially begin Demon City's celebration. Thanks, N. Len Ruoxue nodded. She knew that Uncle Long and the others had been waiting for the city to be built so they could throw a huge celebration. It could be said that they had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Len Ruoxue, who knew what they were thinking, naturally would not stop them. However, when Len Ruoxue heard that Uncle Long and the others were planning to send an invitation to the Divine Master's residence, she felt a little conflicted. Although Uncle Long and the others had a good idea, Len Ruoxue didn't think that Sang Yi would be in the mood to attend Demon City's founding ceremony when he destroyed the city walls in a fit of anger. Moreover, it was impossible for Wu Qing to send someone here. I'm afraid he's going to die of anger. However, Len Ruoxue did not object to their invitation to the Divine Master's residence. After all, these matters had always been handled by Uncle Long and the others. She just had to be a hands-off manager. The official celebration for Demon City's establishment was scheduled to take place half a month later. This would give the various major powers enough time to arrive. Of course, they didn't care how many people arrived. They only hoped that more people would know about this matter. As for the celebration, it would be better if it was done by their own people. That way, they would be more at ease. Not long after the guild had sent out the invitations to the various major powers, the guild responsible for quests, from the main headquarters to the various branch guilds, also announced the news to the entire divine world and even the divine continent. This matter was also treated as a mission that Len Ruoxue had wanted to issue when she went to the Imperial City previously. The headquarters then reported it to the Divine Master's residence. When Wu Jing heard that Len Ruoxue had built a city, she did not have any other reaction other than sneering. From her point of view, so what if Len Ruoxue had built a city? Could it be that the land of demons could replace Yu Cheng's position in the god realm? However, after knowing that Len Ruoxue had actually sent her an invitation, she could not help but sigh. Len Ruoxue was really bold. Go. Why not? If Len Ruoxue dared to invite her, she would dare to send someone over. Of course, she wouldn't go there personally. Len Ruoxue didn't have that much face to invite her. However, when Wu Yan's decision reached Xia Yi and the other two hierarch experts, the three of them were still stunned for a long time. They were completely unable to understand God Lord Mist Ripple's intentions. God Lord Mist Ripple had actually ordered the three of them to celebrate for Len Ruoxue. The three of them naturally didn't dare to disobey the God Lord's orders. More importantly, the three of them were interested in the demon city that Len Ruoxue had built. 3 days before Demon City's celebration, more than half of the various major powers' representatives had already arrived. Uncle Long and the others were naturally happy to see all the forces giving them face. Originally, they had thought that it would be good if half of the people came because of the deterrence of the rhyme bitch. However, they didn't expect that apart from a few top forces from the 8 great divine regions who were on good terms with them, basically all the major, medium, and small forces had sent representatives. This time, they had also sent out a wide invitation. Apart from the forces of a certain scale, they didn't let a few small forces go. The only reason he had invited all of the factions was to increase Demon City's reputation. Otherwise, small factions wouldn't have the qualifications to participate in a gathering of this level. Those who were sent to participate in the celebration were basically influential figures from the various forces. However, these people, who thought they had seen many things, were all shocked speechless for a long time after seeing the current state of the demon's land. Shocking. It was absolutely shocking. What was the demonic land like in the past? The mountains were next to each other, and all the good places in them were occupied by the major beast clans. When humans ventured into the land of demons, they could only move around in the periphery most of the time. No one dared to go deep unless a few powerhouses dared to go in. But now, this place had become a city. Although there were still a few mountains, the current mountains were clearly different from before. At the same time, they were surrounded by a city. It could be said that the current demon city was gorgeous, majestic, and majestic. There was a city, a mountain, a water, and a forest. There was even a magic formation set up in the forest. If they didn't have someone leading the way, it would be difficult for them to enter. However, even though they were brought in, they still received a friendly reminder that the outer forest was very dangerous and it was best to stay in their homes and not wander around. Otherwise, they would be responsible for the consequences if they got lost. At first, some of the people from the other forces did not take such a warning seriously. This was because they had come here not only to participate in the celebration, but also to find out everything about this place. It would be best if they could form a map. However, after a certain disobedient faction was trapped in the forest for several days and suffered mental torture, all the factions gave up on the idea of exploring and obediently stayed in their own homes. Chapter 27:27, The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan. 3. Uncle Long and the others were naturally satisfied with this result. In fact, they dared to invite all the major forces here because they were not afraid that their family's secret would be found out. But whether those people had the ability to find out or not, that was their business. It could be said that Uncle Long and the others' confidence had greatly stimulated some restless forces. They even felt that Uncle Long and the others had a backup plan. As a result, no one dared to have any other thoughts. They only waited for the celebration to begin so that they could leave this beautiful but extremely terrifying place as soon as possible. The day before the celebration, the people from the Divine Lord's estate, whom everyone had thought would not come, finally arrived. When they saw that 3 Reverend God-level experts had come to the Divine Master's residence, they were all in a mess. What was going on? Was it the rhythm of Leng Ruoxue and God Lord Fogripple's reconciliation? The representatives of the major forces could not help but let their thoughts run wild. Uncle Long and the others were clearly surprised that the Divine Master's estate had sent someone. However, Uncle Long and the others were all smart people. When they saw Xia Yi and the other two, they immediately went up to them warmly. After arranging accommodation for the 3 of them, Uncle Long went to find Xian Yi in private to inquire about the situation. As soon as Xian Yi saw Uncle Long, he naturally knew what he wanted to ask. He immediately said, "Don't ask me, I'm also confused. The mist sent us here." Oh. Since Xian Yi had said so, Uncle Long naturally didn't need to continue asking. Then, the 2 of them started to chat. Xian Yi was naturally concerned about who had come. When he heard that the Dragon Clan, White Tiger Clan, and Phoenix Clan had all sent their respective representatives, he couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock as he said in disbelief, "The 3 clans still dare to come? I'm not sure if they dare to or not, but I've already casually sent them an invitation." And they really did send people over. However, other than the White Tiger race, the other 2 clans are clearly much more well-behaved. Uncle Long explained with an evil smile. The White Tiger race wasn't as restrained as the other 2 races. This was also because during this period of time, some of the White Tiger race's clansmen had been staying here to work and earn medicinal pills. They could be considered to have become familiar with them. Furthermore, the White Tiger King was still in their hands, so the other party wouldn't dare to be disobedient. They've suffered such a huge blow last time, they have no choice but to be honest. Xian Yi smiled in understanding. By the way, are the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King hiding in the Divine Master's estate? Uncle Long nodded. Then, he suddenly thought of the 2 guys who were the main culprits and asked. "As far as I know, he's not here." Xian Yi said honestly. "That's weird. Which mouse hole are those 2 old things hiding in?" Uncle Long said to himself. What's the hurry? Hell come out eventually. They're no match for you, and as long as Rime Ice doesn't make a move, they won't be able to cause any trouble. Xian Yi was not worried at all. That's true. Uncle Long also agreed. Soon, the two of them changed to another topic of conversation. The two old friends reminisced about the past in a relaxed mood for a while before Uncle Long got up and left. The next day. It was the day of the celebration. However, a few hours before the ceremony officially began, Uncle Long suddenly received a report that someone had come. He was currently running around in the forest like a headless fly. After asking about the situation and finding out that the person was quite powerful, Uncle Long went out to welcome him personally. But when he walked into the forest and caught a glimpse of the man's clothes, Uncle Long was stunned. It was a handsome man in his 30s. He had an extraordinary bearing and his every move was that of a superior. However, at this moment, the man's expression was very excited. Although there was a trace of confusion on his face, Uncle Long could see that the man was having a great time playing alone. Uncle Long felt that if he was not mistaken, this man should be breaking the formation in the forest. Originally, this was a maze-like forest. Later on, Shuai added some illusionary formations in it. As a result, the paths here were even more difficult to grasp. However, the man in front of him was clearly quite interested in everything here. Thanks however, Shuai's formation was passed down from Master Yu, it wasn't that easy to break. Uncle Long suddenly felt helpless. However, this man's identity was extraordinary. He was definitely an important guest, so Uncle Long really did not want this man to waste his time here. With this thought in mind, Uncle Long walked toward the man. However, the man clearly didn't pay any attention to the people behind him. He was still completely focused on the formation in the forest. Strange. How did this happen? The man muttered to himself as he observed the formation that appeared from time to time. He was really a formation fanatic. Uncle Long was helpless and could only take the initiative to say, "Your Excellency from the Qilin clan, I've specially come to pick you up." Uncle Long had addressed the man as Your Excellency because he did not know his name. Furthermore, although this formation fanatic of the Qilin clan was a godly venerable rank beast like him, this man's strength was definitely higher than his. Hence, he had addressed the man as Your Excellency willingly. It couldn't be helped. This was the foundation of the Qilin clan. As one of the 4 strongest king-level divine beast clans among the beast clans, the Qilin clan was relatively low-key compared to the other 3 clans. However, this low-key of theirs contained a sense of luxury, so low-key that no one dared to look down on them. It could be said that among the 4 great king divine beast clans, the Qilin clan had the highest status. The Qilin clan was also the only beast clan that had not been successfully broken through by Wu Xian in the incident with Master Yu. Uncle Long admired them for this. However, the Qilin clan's reproductive ability was not as strong as the other 3 clans. Thus, the number of members of the Qilin clan was actually quite small. Until now, it was said that the number of members of the Qilin clan was less than 100. After thinking about this, Uncle Long realized that the other party didn't respond at all. He had no choice but to speak again. "Your Excellency from the Qilin race, I heard you. Go play somewhere else and don't disturb me while I'm studying the formation." The man interrupted Uncle Long before he could finish. Uncle Long looked as if he had expected this and continued to remind him, "Your Excellency, you're here to attend our city-building celebration, right? It's about to start." "I know, but I haven't figured out how to solve this formation yet." The man replied, his head still lowered and very focused. Uncle Long was helpless. He had never seen a beastie that loved formations so much. One had to know that almost all the beasts were idiots at formations. After thinking for a while, Uncle Long could only throw out a bait. "This array was set up by my Shuai. If you are really interested in arrays, you can have a good match with Shuai after the celebration." As expected, the man immediately raised his head after hearing Uncle Long's words. He stared at Uncle Long with bright eyes and said, "Shuai. Is it Len Ruoxue?" Uncle Long nodded. Seeing this, the man stood up straight and confirmed with a worried expression, "You said it yourself. Once your celebration is over, I will immediately look for Leng Ruoxue to spar with her on array techniques." Hearing the man's words, Uncle Long suddenly realized that he had caused Shuer a lot of trouble. Looking at this man's infatuated expression, Shuer probably had something to do. But at this moment, Uncle Long couldn't care so much. After all, the celebration was more important. This was the first time that Demon City had displayed its glory to the entire immortal realm. He absolutely couldn't delay. With this thought in mind, Uncle Long brought the man, who was obviously still reluctant to part with the formation in the forest, back to the main residence without any guilt. At this time, the main residence was already crowded with people. However, the man's appearance still caused a commotion among everyone. This was because the totem on the corner of this man's clothes was a mighty golden qilin with its head held high. In the entire divine world, only the Qilin clan would dare to embroider a qilin on their clothes. When the White Tiger race's first elder saw this man, he was so shocked that his jaw almost fell to the ground. He rubbed his eyes with all his might, and in the next second, he hurriedly ran over to the man and gave a deep bow, saying with extreme respect, "Old ancestor, why are you here?" Oh my God! This ancestor had actually come out for a walk. Could it be that the Qilin clan was about to change? The White Tiger First Elder was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. One had to know that this person's status was definitely one of the top in the Qilin race. Although he couldn't compare to the Qilin race leader, he wasn't that far off. More importantly, this person had never cared about worldly affairs, and was only obsessed with formations. Therefore, the Grand Elder of the White Tiger race couldn't understand why this ancestor would come here. More importantly, this person was of the same generation as the previous White Tiger King who had been sealed. Hence, even if this person was not from the White Tiger clan, he still had to respectfully address him as Old Ancestor. Of course, everyone present only knew that this man was from the Qilin race, but they didn't know his identity. When they saw the White Tiger race's great elder calling the other party Old Ancestor, they were all surprised for a long time. However, whether it was the man or the White Tiger race's great elder, they felt that there was no need to explain to them. Therefore, everyone's reaction was ignored. However, when Uncle Long heard the White Tiger First Elder call this man Old Ancestor, he thought to himself, this man's status is indeed high. He was very satisfied that the Qilin clan had sent such a high-ranking clansman. Then, Uncle Long politely invited the man to take a seat. The man didn't act coy. He smiled and nodded before sitting down. Then, he picked up an exquisite piece of dessert from the plate on the table beside him and tasted it. Then, his eyes revealed a surprised light. Your place really lives up to its reputation. The desserts are really delicious. It seems that I didn't come in vain. The man said happily. He had two hobbies in his life. One was formations, and the other was eating. It could be considered a coincidence that he had come to Demon City. Chapter 27-28, City Building Celebration, 1. In fact, he had just come out of seclusion not long ago. However, after he came out of his closed-door cultivation, he had heard the clan members mention Leng Ruoxue's name. What caught his attention the most was that Leng Ruoxue was actually Master Ye's disciple. After finding out about Leng Ruoxue's identity, he started to pay attention to her. This time, when he heard that the little girl wanted to build a city and the Qilin clan had received the invitation, he volunteered to come. Of course, the main reason he came was because he was curious about Leng Ruoxue. However, after knowing that he was going to participate in the celebration of Demon City's founding, the Qilin clansmen's expressions were all rather interesting and filled with disbelief. Looking at his clansmen's shocked expressions, the man suddenly felt that it was quite interesting to occasionally do something unexpected. In the entire firmament, the person who had done the most unexpected things was naturally the famous and popular Leng Ruoxue. As such, his interest in Leng Ruoxue was even stronger. Now that he had heard from the dragon whale that the little girl knew how to use formations and that there was delicious food here, the man felt that this trip had not been in vain. When Uncle Long heard the man's words, he was speechless. Why is this guy either staring at the array or interested in eating? However, they were all foodies. Foodies had always had something in common with each other, so when the two foodies got together, they naturally began to talk about food as if no one was around. The more the two talked, the more congenial they became. The crowd of people who were watching with their mouths agape had all become background boards and were completely ignored. When Leng Ruoxue felt that it was about time, she went from the room to the living room. She saw everyone sitting there like fools, while Uncle Long was having a great chat with an unknown man. It was obvious that the two of them were having a great time. Originally, Leng Ruoxue didn't want to disturb the two of them when she saw that they were chatting so happily. However, the auspicious time for the celebration was about to arrive, and Uncle Long still had to host the celebration. If they continued to chat like this, they would be wasting time. Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to interrupt them. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Uncle Long. It's almost time." Leng Ruoxue reminded him helplessly. "Arg. Look at my memory. I'm sorry, everyone, I almost forgot the time." When Uncle Long saw that Leng Ruoxue had arrived, he hurriedly stood up and apologized to everyone present. However, as to how much sincerity he had in his apology, it depended on the person. Of course, everyone expressed that they didn't mind. At this moment, Uncle Long pulled Leng Ruoxue over and introduced her to her with a smile. "Shuer, this is Mr. Shui Mo from the Qilin race." Then, he turned to the man and said, "Sir Shui Mo, this is my little Shuer." "Hello, Mr. Shui Mo." Leng Ruoxue could tell that this man had extraordinary abilities, so she spoke very politely. "Hello, little girl. I've heard of your name for a long time. Let's have a good sparring when we have time." Shui Mo's eyes glowed with joy. This little girl was not an ordinary person. She was indeed worthy of being the disciple chosen by the master. In a few breaths, Shui Mo had already sized up Leng Ruoxue and made a quick judgment. He had a good impression of her. However, Leng Ruoxue was confused by Shui Mo's words. Why did this powerful senior of the Qilin clan want to spar with someone the moment they met? This was not a good habit. She was a little speechless. More importantly, this person's strength was clearly above hers. As such, Leng Ruoxue could not understand why this person would target her. Thanks at this moment, she naturally didn't know that Shui Mo wanted to spar with her not in terms of martial arts but in terms of formation. However, no matter how helpless she felt, she still said politely, "If there's a chance, I'll definitely exchange pointers with Senior." Of course, these were just polite words. However, Shui Mo was very serious and decided that he would take action as soon as they finished their business. Just like that, unknowingly, Leng Ruoxue had been targeted by a rather persistent Qilin. A moment later, the celebration began as scheduled. Leng Ruoxue and the rest headed to the ceremony venue first. It was located in a specially open public square in Demon City, and the decorations were so gorgeous that it was almost impossible to look at. Although many of the people present had seen big scenes, it was clear that the scale of Demon City's celebration was beyond their expectations. The venue was decorated with exotic flowers, each competing to bloom. The ground was covered with a red carpet, raising the entire celebration to a higher level. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most eye-catching thing was the crystal fruit plates on the podium. Those fruits were obviously not ordinary. Each fruit was covered with a layer of faint fluorescent light, and rich spiritual energy was flowing around the fruit. He was really too rich. No. These fruits were not something that could be obtained with money. With shock, everyone took their seats. As the MC, Uncle Long started to give a long and eloquent speech once the time was up. Leng Ruoxue, who was sitting in the VIP area, listened to Uncle Long's emotional speech and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She had known Uncle Long for so long, but she never knew that he could actually say so many things on the surface. Just as Leng Ruoxue's thoughts were running wild, she suddenly heard Uncle Long's voice. "Next, let's welcome our city lord, Leng Ruoxue, to give a speech to everyone." In an instant, everyone's eyes turned to her. Leng Ruoxue was stunned. Was there a need for her to speak? On such an important day, it was only right for her to say a few words since she was crowned as the city lord. However, if she remembered correctly, there was no part of the celebration process where she, the city lord, would give a speech. Uncle Long had definitely added scenes without permission. When he saw Leng Ruoxue smiling evilly at Uncle Long, he felt extremely helpless. Uncle Long had learned his lesson. He had also launched a surprise attack. She was really not prepared for this. However, she was naturally not afraid of such a scene. With a faint smile, Leng Ruoxue stood up from the VIP seats and walked straight up to the high platform that had been set up in advance. After a moment of silence, she opened her mouth with a very polite tone. "Thank you, everyone, for coming to our Demon City's founding ceremony today. From today onwards, I officially declare the establishment of Demon City." Pausing for a moment, she looked around and continued, "I don't know if everyone is aware, but the reason why our Demon City has today's scale is all thanks to Rime Ice. So, I have to thank her properly. If it wasn't for her sneak attack on us a few months ago, I'm afraid we wouldn't have thought of building the land of demons into a demon city. I hope that the 3 hierarch gods of the Lord God's Manor will convey my Demon City's deep gratitude to Rime when you return. At the same time, I would like to thank the Lord God's Manor for sending people to witness the great moment of our Demon City's construction. I hope that everyone will have a good time today." After saying that, she walked down the stage that was covered with a red carpet. Chapter 27-29, City Building Celebration, 2. Leng Ruoxue's words were very short, but she had specially mentioned Wu Xian and even said that she wanted to thank the other party. When the crowd heard this, they could not help but turn their eyes to the 3 reverent god-level experts from the Divine Master's estate who were also seated in the VIP seats. Xian Yi and the others immediately felt uneasy. They could clearly feel that the gazes of the crowd contained a trace of gloating. Of course, there was also probing. This made the 3 of them extremely helpless. Although not many people in the divine world knew about the sneak attack by Wu Qing a few months ago and the news was not widely spread due to the control of the God Lord's estate, this did not mean that some of the top clans did not know the ins and outs of the matter. After all, some things did not need to be said. After the previous incident, the Divine Master's estate had maintained their silence. Leng Ruoxue and the others were still safe and sound. The top forces must have known what this meant. Therefore, at this moment, the 3 of them really regretted coming to this celebration. They were here to be watched. This fact made the 3 of them feel their faces burning. Of course, the 3 of them were reverent god-level cultivators, after all. Many curious people did not dare to be too presumptuous and stare at them. However, from Leng Ruoxue's words, they could more or less make out some clues. Not only did the 2 sides not shake hands and make peace, but they seemed to have deepened their hatred instead. This time, a considerable number of forces also regretted coming here to join in the fun. If the Divine Master knew about this, would he find trouble with them? However, everyone's thoughts did not last long. Very soon, their attention was completely diverted. After Leng Ruoxue's speech, Uncle Long said a few more polite words, and the performance that they had arranged in advance officially began. Most of the participants were beastie, and they only performed the simplest skills such as cornice and soaring into the air. However, it was this simple action that completely stunned all the factions present, making them dumbfounded. No one had expected that Beastie would be so brilliant just by showing off his talent. Right, what was this called? Acrobatic? That's right, acrobatics. To most of the people in the firmament, this term was extremely new. One had to know that this was something that only existed in Leng Ruoxue's previous life. A considerable portion of the people who had come to participate in the ceremony today were the natives of the firmament. In Leng Ruoxue's heart, these natives had never seen such a novel thing before. Therefore, she had specially rehearsed a large acrobatic show according to the specialties of the magical beasts. Uncle Long and the others had never seen this acrobatic performance before, so they were all shocked when it was performed. Wonderful. It was really too exciting. No one was willing to blink their eyes, afraid that they would miss any wonderful action. As the performance began, exquisite food was served to the table in front of everyone, but at this time, no one was in the mood to eat. They were all staring at the wonderful, exciting, and nerve-wracking acrobatic show. After an unknown period of time, the heart-stirring acrobatic performance finally ended. Only then did everyone have the chance to let out a long sigh of relief, but they still had a stunned expression on their faces. After a while, the aroma of the food finally attracted their attention. Thanks only then did everyone start to taste the food. After a mouthful of delicious food, everyone was once again amazed. What is this? Why is it so delicious? Looking at the disbelieving expressions on everyone's faces, Len Ruoxue couldn't help but think to herself, which corner did this group of grandmothers crawl out from? They really haven't seen the world. Of course, Len Ruoxue's bad mood did not affect everyone's interest in tasting the delicious food. They ate very happily and watched the performance with great enjoyment. After watching the exciting acrobatic show, it was naturally time for the auction. No one had expected that there would be such an important event like an auction today. This was too unexpected. More importantly, they were not prepared at all. If they could not bid for something good, they would regret it to death. As it turned out, after the auction began, everyone was indeed regretting it. This was because every item displayed for auction was an item that could not be bought even with 1,000 gold. However, everyone was embarrassed and really couldn't afford it. Uncle Long could naturally see the embarrassment in most people's hearts. After a faint smile, he gave everyone a piece of good news. Don't worry, everyone. Today's auction is mainly to give everyone a surprise. Therefore, you can bid as much as you want for the items you've taken a fancy to. The bill can be settled later after you bid for the items. These words were definitely good news for everyone. When everyone heard this, they immediately became excited and rubbed their fists, ready to go all out. Uncle Long was very happy to see the atmosphere getting more and more heated. When the auction officially began, the items they auctioned, such as pills, equipment, and some medicinal herbs, were all sold at a high price. The results were naturally satisfactory. Many of the powers that had come to participate in Demon City's celebration had obtained unexpected gains. They wouldn't be able to forget the exciting programs that Demon City had specially arranged for them for a long time. The city building celebration started in the morning and continued into the late night. As such, after the celebration ended, the participating forces were still not satisfied, especially those who had not managed to get anything. They all pestered Uncle Long in unison, hoping that he would bring out more good things. However, Uncle Long was very insistent and told them in advance not to be anxious. In the future, they would organize regular auctions at the Yao Clan Tower, especially for supreme-grade pills and other rare items. They would definitely have a chance to bid for them. After hearing this, the crowd reluctantly let go of Uncle Long. After a night's rest, the major forces began to bid farewell the next day. Demon City also gradually became quiet. After yesterday, the city of demons was finally officially established in the realm of gods. Uncle Long and the others had been busy for a long time. Although they were tired, they were quite satisfied to see the celebration yesterday so successful. However, after sending most of the people away, Uncle Long and the others all collapsed from exhaustion. When Len Ruoxue walked into the living room, she saw Uncle Long and the rest lying limply on their chairs. When she got closer, she said helplessly, "Uncle Long, if you're too tired, you can go back to your room and rest." "No. There's a guest here." Uncle Long refused. There are still people who haven't left?" Len Ruoxue was a little surprised. Could it be people from the Weapon Masters Guild and the Alchemist Guild? Although there were many guests yesterday, she still remembered the two representatives from the headquarters. When they saw the first elder and the other irresponsible guys, they all cried. They cried not because they missed first elder and the others, but because these few big shots from the two headquarters didn't return home and were growing up here. Chapter 2730, City Building Celebration, 3. However, no matter how the representatives of the two headquarters complained that they were currently without a leader, the Great Elder and the others were unmoved. Right at this moment, Shen Nua's voice rang in Leng Ruoxiu's ears again. Shuer, didn't you say there was a centipede? Where was it? Quickly show me. I'm in need of it now. As soon as she finished speaking, Shen Nuo ran into the living room in a hurry, then pulled Leng Ruoxiu and ran out. Uncle Long watched the two of them leave and swallowed the words he was about to say. Shen Nuo pulled Leng Ruoxiu all the way back to the courtyard that was specially used for their office. There were already a few pairs of eyes waiting for them. Shuer, where's the centipede? Lu Yue and Jiang Ning asked at the same time when they saw Leng Ruoxiu. It was obvious that they couldn't wait anymore. Leng Ruoxiu looked at them helplessly. Aren't these people a little too impatient? She had only just remembered yesterday that she had caught a 10,000-year centipede. She didn't expect that they would remember it today. What, you guys want to use it too? Leng Ruoxiu blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked. Hee, we're researching a medicine that just so happens to require the 10,000-year centipede's poison. Shuer, you should have collected it, right? Don't tell us that there's none. Jiang Ning said immediately. The expression on his face was as if he was saying, if you don't, you'll be disappointed. Yes, there is, but, Leng Ruoxiu was only halfway through her sentence when she turned to First Elder and asked, First Elder, do you need it too? I want a piece of the centipede's outer shell to be used for artifact refining. The First Elder said with a smile. Oh. Leng Ruoxiu then looked at Lu Feng and Mo Yen. There was no need to ask these two, they must also be thinking about the centipede's shell. Smiling calmly, Leng Ruoxiu shifted her thoughts and a huge centipede was moved out of her house. When the Great Elder and the others saw the size of the centipede, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Good heavens, it's indeed a 10,000-year centipede. It had actually grown so big. Ayaya. This centipede shell was good stuff. The Great Elder's eyes were shining. He couldn't help but reach out his wolf claws and touch the black centipede's shiny hard shell. Lu Feng and Mo Yen were also very interested in the centipede's shell. After the First Elder made his move, the two of them also stretched out their wolf claws and stared at their prey with bright eyes. Then, they said in unison, Shuer, this centipede's quality is pretty good. Its shell can definitely be made into a few sets of top-grade armor. Yes, I know, but I can't let you use its shell yet. Leng Ruoxiu laughed evilly. Upon hearing this, the three craftsmen, led by the First Elder, immediately exploded with dissatisfaction. Little girl, you're not such a petty person. You can't even share a centipede like this with us. First Elder looked at Leng Ruoxiu with a look of despair, as though she had said something she should not have. Little Shuer, can you share some with us? It's so big, you can't use it yourself. Lu Feng begged coquettishly. Yeah, I want one too. Mo Yen was more direct. It's not that I'm being stingy, but I really can't give it to you now. Leng Ruoxiu said helplessly. This guy was still alive. However, before she could explain, Leng Ruoxiu heard First Elder suddenly exclaim and jump up. There was still a look of lingering fear on his face, and it was obvious that he had suffered a great shock. It's moving. The First Elder stuttered. What moved? Lu Yue and the others were baffled, not understanding what he was talking about. The centipede is moving. The Great Elder pointed at the motionless centipede on the ground. It can't be. Everyone was shocked, and their eyes widened in disbelief, especially Lu Feng. He did not believe the First Elder's words at all. He had touched the centipede just now, but why did he not feel it move? Thinking up to this point, Lu Feng even gave centipede a few hard kicks before turning to the crowd. Look, it's not alive at all. First Elder, you're seeing things. You brat, you're the one who's seeing things. This guy is really alive. When First Elder heard Lu Feng's words, he was furious. Is that so? Lu Feng then turned around and carefully examined the centipede, his face filled with suspicion. Seeing that Lu Feng did not seem to believe him, the Great Elder could not take it anymore. He pulled Len Ruoxue over and said, "Girl, you're the one who took out this centipede, so you have the most right to speak. Do you think it's alive?" Len Ruoxue smiled faintly when she heard this. She then stepped forward and kicked the giant centipede. "If you're still playing dead, it'll really tear you apart." "Don't. Ancestor. I was wrong." Hearing this, the black centipede that was lying on the ground immediately struggled to get up and begged. "Thanks, it's really alive." At this point, Lu Feng had no choice but to believe it. Since the centipede had already spoken, he couldn't possibly lie to himself. But soon after, he looked at Len Ruoxue in disappointment and grumbled, "Shuer, what do we do now?" "Salad. Didn't you want to use it to refine pills and weapons? Take it. I'm giving it to you," Len Ruoxue said nonchalantly. When the centipede heard this, it immediately burst into tears and wailed, "Ancestor. I'm already so well behaved, so why do you still want to kill me? Sob. Please leave me a way out. I don't want to die." Hearing Centipede's plea, First Elder and the others were all speechless. This guy was crying so miserably that they couldn't bring themselves to do it. However, the huge temptation of the centipede's shell made them unwilling to give up just like that. For a moment, they were extremely conflicted. First Elder looked at the centipede, then turned to look at Len Ruoxue. He sighed and said, "Girl, you've given us a difficult problem. No need to make things difficult for me. This guy is my captive. If you want to kill him, just do it. Besides, I kept it for my own use." Len Ruoxue said nonchalantly. "Then, why don't you crack it first, and then well split it?" After hesitating for a moment, First Elder couldn't help but suggest. Don't. Ancestors, please let me go. I'll be your slave. You won't regret keeping me alive. I promise." Hearing the Grand Elder's words, Centipede immediately began to plead with the others. Looking at the giant centipede with its huge eyes filled with tears, the First Elder and the others were in a dilemma. To be honest, they really felt that the centipede's greatest use was to refine pills and weapons. It's definitely a good material. Unfortunately, why was it a living one? Grand Elder and the others were not bloodthirsty people, so they really couldn't bear to kill Beastie, who had no enmity with them. Turning their heads, First Elder and the others no longer looked at the centipede. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. If they continued to look, they were afraid that they would not be able to control the greed in their hearts. AI. It was a good material. "Girl, since it's still alive, let's let it go for now." Sighing heavily, the First Elder said with a face full of reluctance. "It's up to you. I'm giving it to you anyway. However, remember to let me know before you kill it. Let me tame it first. It'll also be a contribution to my beast taming technique." Len Ruoxue reminded him with a smile. "Oh, okay." First Elder and the others wanted to cry but had no tears. Could they refuse this gift? He really regretted asking Shuer for the centipede. Not only could he not use it immediately, but he also had to keep it. It was really a mistake. The few of them were filled with regret. After that, seeing that there was nothing else, Len Ruoxue bade farewell to First Elder and the others before leaving behind only First Elder and a few others. They looked at the giant centipede with a face full of worry. "What should I do with you?" After staring at the black centipede for a long time, the Great Elder sighed. "Don't kill me. I can do many things. I can give you my poison. Really, I promise to be obedient and listen to you. Just don't kill me." The giant centipede immediately expressed its determination. Then spit out some poison first. After hearing this, Jiang Ning said rudely. "Damn it, how could he forget? If they wanted to extract the poison, they didn't even need to kill the centipede. As long as it was willing to cooperate, it would be fine." And now, the centipede was obviously very willing to cooperate. The centipede nodded and then opened its mouth. Jiang Ning also took out a small white jade bottle and put it in front of the centipede's mouth. Not long after, the centipede vomited an entire bottle of poison. It was so tired that it was gasping for breath. It had to be said that extracting poison was also physical work. You've worked hard. Take a good rest, we'll continue later. Jiang Ning patted the centipede's head and praised it. The black centipede's face turned green when it heard the words continue later. However, it did not dare to resist and could only nod. The time that followed slowly passed by as he continued to extract poison from his body in Jiangning. The giant centipede was finally exhausted after being drained of countless bottles of poison. It fell to the ground and couldn't get up again. Even so, Jiang Ning didn't give up his right to exploit it. He even held a small white bottle in his hand and waited for it to continue spitting out poison. Seeing this, the big black centipede even wanted to die. Woo, can you not abuse and exploit the vulnerable group like this? They were really bullying the centipede. If this went on, it would be better to let these people directly kill it in the first place, so that it would not have to suffer so much. At this moment, the giant centipede hated its begging just now. The current him was living a life worse than death. In the end, the giant centipede passed out from overexertion. This time, it was definitely not pretending. After glancing at the giant centipede that had died from exhaustion, the first elder and the others gave Jiang Ning a thumbs up. Amazing. Don't worship me, I really didn't do anything. Jiang Ning felt a little embarrassed when he saw the teasing look in their eyes. Chapter 27:31, Are the two of you here for a blind date? 1. You've done a lot, really. The great elder laughed evilly. Today, he finally realized how talented Jiang Ning was. Such a huge 10,000-year-old centipede had made him faint from exhaustion. One should know that not everyone had the ability to do such a thing. At least, he couldn't. As he thought about it, he looked at Jiang Ning with even more admiration. Then, he added, Jiang Ning, you can continue after it wakes up. It's best if it's dead from exhaustion, then we can use its shell. Yes, good luck. It was rare that Lu Feng did not go against the great elder. Mo Yen took it for granted. Hey! I say, you guys are going too far. Let me be the bad guy, and you guys enjoy the fruits of my labor. Jiang Ning clenched his fists and roared. However, the few people present ignored his anger. More importantly, they knew the temperament of Jiang Ning. That guy would not get angry over such a matter. He was just a paper tiger. Just like that, Jiang Ning was given the heavy responsibility. The black centipede's miserable life had just begun. On the other side, after Leng Ruoxue left with the Grand Elder and the others, she returned to see Uncle Long. Seeing that Uncle Long and the others were still slumped in their chairs, too lazy to move, Leng Ruoxue could only shake her head helplessly. Shuer, Shen Nuo, and the others are willing to let you come back. Uncle Long smiled when he saw Leng Ruoxue. Yes, I gave them the centipede. I'm fine now. Leng Ruoxue simply explained. Hee. They're fine, but I'm busy. Uncle Long said seriously. Speak. What do you need me to do? Leng Ruoxue sighed softly. She knew it. The Ascender Alliance and His Excellency Shui Mo haven't left yet. They're all looking for you. Uncle Long said directly. Sir Shui Mo really wants to spar with me. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. The Ascender Alliance was looking for her because of Zhang Miao and the others. However, she was a little conflicted about Shui Mo, this can't be helped. He just came to find you. Uncle Long said sympathetically. Ah. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. I've finally found you. At this moment, Shui Mo's voice came from behind Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue's heart skipped a beat. She turned around gloomily and greeted Shui Mo with a faint smile. Hello, Mr. Shui Mo. Little girl, don't stand on ceremony with me. Let's go and spar. With that, Shuemo reached out to grab Leng Ruoxue and was about to walk out of the hall. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue was beyond depressed. Today, including Shenhua, she had already been dragged away by people without any explanation twice. Just as they were pulled to the entrance of the living room, the two of them met the Ascender Alliance's General Alliance Master and Li Jing. Upon seeing the two of them, Leng Ruoxue looked as if she had found her savior. She quickly turned to Shuemo and said, "Mr. Shuemo, I'm sorry, but we can't spar now. I have something to deal with. What could be more important than our sparring?" Hearing this, Shuemo snorted and glanced at the Alliance Master and Li Jing. The two of them felt a chill in their hearts as they laughed bitterly in their hearts. They had made His Excellency Shuemo unhappy. Was this considered being unjustly attacked? Thanks, all right. They indeed had something to discuss with Leng Ruoxue, but they did not dare to snatch her from Shuemo. Although everyone was a reverent god, there was still a gap between reverent god level. As for His Excellency Shuemo, he was definitely a top reverent god level figure. He couldn't afford to offend him. At the thought of this, the General Alliance Master said with great insight, "Although we have some business with Miss Leng, we have to follow the order of things. Since it was Mr. Shuemo who found Leng Ruoxue first, please go first. We're not in a hurry." "You bastard. You guys aren't anxious. You came later." When Leng Ruoxue heard the Alliance Master's words, the anger in her heart immediately rose. This lackey was definitely a model of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Leng Ruoxue was furious. The consequences would be severe. However, Shuemo was obviously very satisfied with the general leader's tactfulness. He patted the Alliance Master's shoulder in praise and praised, "You're not bad. You're a promising child. Your Ascender Alliance will definitely have a bright future." With that, he didn't stand on ceremony and pulled away the unwilling Leng Ruoxue. Before she left, Leng Ruoxue glared daggers at the Alliance Master without holding back in order to vent her anger. After watching the two of them leave, the Alliance Master nudged Li Jing, who was beside him, and whispered, "Did I offend Leng Ruoxue? Why is she glaring at me? Not only did I offend her, I've also offended her to the core." Li Jing covered his face and said helplessly, "Sometimes." He really admired the Alliance Master's judgment. He was so focused on not offending the Qilin that he forgot about Leng Ruoxue's existence. Could it be that the Alliance Master really couldn't see Leng Ruoxue's unwillingness at all? However, it seemed that he couldn't blame the Alliance Master too much. After all, most people were like this. They were used to paying attention to the strong and would unconsciously ignore the existence of the weak. However, the crucial point was that Leng Ruoxue was not a weakling. Li Jing even felt that Leng Ruoxue was scarier than Shuemo. If you offended Shuemo, Shuemo would just ignore you. However, if you offended Leng Ruoxue, the consequences. Li Jing didn't even dare to imagine. AI. He believed that if he didn't help Leng Ruoxue out today, Zhang Miao and the rest wouldn't be able to get it back so easily. I didn't say anything. How did I offend her? The Alliance Master pondered for a while, but he still couldn't understand Li Jing's words. Li Jing looked at the Alliance Master deeply, then shook his head and sighed. He then turned around and left. Ugh! The Alliance Master, who had been left behind, still had a silly expression on his face. After being stunned for a long time, he couldn't figure it out, so he left gloomily. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue had been dragged to her residence by Shuemo. After entering the room, Shuemo smiled at Leng Ruoxue and said, "As long as you satisfy me, I'll let you go." Leng Ruoxue's face darkened. Why did these words sound so awkward? Wasn't it just a spar? However, no matter how awkward it was, Leng Ruoxue had to nod her head and accept her fate. "Senior, how do you want to compare notes? I heard that you're proficient in formations, and I also know a little about formations. How about we have a competition?" Shuemo said impatiently. "A formation? You want to spar with me on formations?" Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes. She didn't expect Shui Mo to be competing in this. However, did Beastie also know about formations? Seeing through Leng Ruoxue's doubts, Shui Mo said with pride, "Don't look down on me. Even though I'm self-taught, I think I'm pretty good. Come, let's compete." "Alright." Leng Ruoxue agreed. Since they were competing in array techniques, she naturally wasn't afraid. However, what surprised her was that this Qilin was a self-taught Qilin. It really wasn't simple. Chapter 2732, Are the two of you here for a blind date? 2. Then we'll each come up with a formation and let the other side solve it. Whoever solves it first wins, okay? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue had agreed, Shui Mo continued to discuss with her. "Sure, I don't have any problems with that." Leng Ruoxue nodded. However, she felt that she was being a bully. One must know that her master had left her with quite a number of array techniques. Even though she had yet to master all of them, she believed that she definitely knew more than this Qilin who had self-taught himself about array techniques. In this comparison, she would definitely be the one with the complete victory. Ugh! Wouldn't this be an unfair victory? Leng Ruoxue was a little hesitant, but she told him the truth in the end. "Mr. Shui Mo, my formation skills are all from my master. Are you sure you want to compete with me?" "What, you're looking down on me? I know you have a good master, but we haven't even started the competition yet, so it's still not certain who will win or lose, right?" Shui Mo said confidently. "I'm not looking down on you. I just don't want to win an unfair battle, so I'm telling you in advance." Leng Ruoxue explained. "I see. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing," Shui Mo said nonchalantly. However, Leng Ruoxue's reminder improved his impression of her. After that, the two of them each set up a formation. Shui Mo's formation was a defensive one while Leng Ruoxue's was an offensive one. Because it was the first formation of the competition, both of them were at the level of testing each other. Neither of them revealed the formation to be too profound, and almost at the same time, the two of them broke the formation at the same time. Not bad. Shui Mo's eyes lit up as he stared at Leng Ruoxue, his face full of excitement. "Same to you. However, this is only the first one. Let's continue." Leng Ruoxue reminded him with a faint smile. "Alright." Shui Mo was in high spirits and naturally wanted this. In the following time, the two of them used all kinds of formations. Be it offensive, defensive, or spirit-gathering formations, as long as they could think of any formation that could be broken, the two of them gave it to each other. Moreover, the difficulty of the formation would naturally increase. After an unknown amount of time, the competition between the two of them continued. As the difficulty of the array increased, the speed of the two of them unraveling the array slowed down significantly. However, Leng Ruoxue had a powerful master, so even if Shui Mo's array was very difficult, it was only a matter of time for her. However, Shui Mo took longer and longer to think about Leng Ruoxue's array. When Shui Mo finally solved the last step of one of Leng Ruoxue's formations, he saw that Leng Ruoxue had already solved the formation and was looking at him calmly. Shui Mo smiled and said, "I've lost. Sir Shui Mo's formation skills are very high. If I didn't have a good master, I wouldn't be your match." Leng Ruoxue chuckled. She had also benefited a lot from the battle with Shui Mo. More importantly, Shui Mo's self-taught ability had given her a lot of inspiration. "Little girl, being too humble is a sign of hypocrisy," Shui Mo joked. "I'm serious. I'll give this to you. Let's continue sparring when we have time." Leng Ruoxue took out a book and passed it to Shui Mo. Shui Mo took it subconsciously and flipped it open. His expression changed immediately. Isn't this the Master Yes knowledge on formations? Was she really giving it to him? This was too precious. Shui Mo, who was holding the book with both hands, was so excited that he couldn't speak. Thanks. After a long while, he finally recovered. He looked at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief and asked, "You're really giving this to me?" "No. I can't accept it, it's too precious. Although Shui Mo was very envious of that book on formations, he could not accept a reward without doing anything. He did not have anything of equal value to exchange with Leng Ruoxue, so he felt ashamed to accept it. However, even though he said that he would not accept it, he still stared at the book, his eyes reluctant to leave. I'm not giving this to you for free. You have to study it well and then spar with me. You must know that my master's knowledge of formations is quite profound. Although I've already read most of it, I hope you can find new things from it. That way, it will give me more inspiration. Leng Ruoxue revealed her motive. As the saying goes, 2 heads are better than 1. Among the people Leng Ruoxue knew, the one who was so obsessed with formations was definitely this Qilin. Moreover, although she had not known this Qilin for a long time, she could still trust the character of the Qilin race. However, Leng Ruoxue still added, only you can read this book. You can't give it to anyone else. Can you promise me that? Yes, I know. I won't tell anyone. Shui Mo understood what Leng Ruoxue meant and quickly promised. In fact, there were not many people in the divine realm who knew about formation arrays and were also interested in them. This was because formation arrays were really too profound and difficult to understand. Many people did not have the patience to study them. Therefore, it was indeed very rare for people who loved to study formation arrays to find a like-minded person to study formation arrays with. Leng Ruoxue's words were exactly what Shui Mo was thinking. Shui Mo was also very happy to find a like-minded friend. In order to live up to his expectations and also because he was too obsessed with formations, he couldn't wait to read the book as soon as he got it. Shui Mo was so focused on his book that he couldn't see anything else. Seeing how infatuated he was, Leng Ruoxue smiled helplessly and quietly left his room. When she left the room and breathed in the fresh air, Leng Ruoxue suddenly realized that she had been sparring with Shui Mo for God knows how long. If she remembered correctly, it was daytime when Shui Mo had pulled her to spar with him. Why was it still daytime? Could it be that it's already the second day? Ugh! Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but wipe off her cold sweat. In any case, the time would definitely not be short. Leng Ruoxue walked out of Shui Mo's courtyard and into the living room. Sure, Sir Shui Mo has finally let you off. Uncle Long was the only one in the living room. When he saw Leng Ruoxue, he couldn't help but tease her. Yup. Uncle Long, why are you alone today? Did the others go back to their rooms to sleep? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Sure, do you know how many days it has been since you were dragged away by Sir Shui Mo? After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Uncle Long asked helplessly. A few days. Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes. She was just about to ask about this. It'll be a month in 5 days. Uncle Long sighed. It's been that long. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Why didn't she feel anything at all? From the looks of it, cultivation really knew no time. Yes. The Ascender Alliance's chief is about to go crazy from waiting, but he doesn't dare to disturb you, hee. Uncle Long wanted to laugh at the thought of the old man running around in circles like a headless fly. Then who is to blame? Who was the one who asked me to spar with Sir Shui Mo first? When Leng Ruoxue thought of this, she still held a grudge. Chapter 2733, Are the two of you here for a blind date? 3. Back then, Leng Ruoxue felt that she would be letting him down if she didn't let him wait for her. Yup. You didn't come out for so long, and he was so anxious, but there was nothing he could do. You didn't see his expression. It's so funny. Uncle Long vividly described to Leng Ruoxue the General Master's expression at that time, and Leng Ruoxue felt very relieved after hearing it. However, even so, she didn't plan to meet the General Alliance Master immediately. However, the Alliance Master heard the news from somewhere and immediately ran to the living room after knowing that she had appeared. The moment he saw Leng Ruoxue, the Alliance Master, who was still panting, immediately said impatiently, Miss Leng, I have something to discuss with you. Let's have a talk. He had finally met her. This time, he would not let her off even if he died. I'm sorry, Chief, I'm not free right now. Leng Ruoxue rejected without even thinking. Don't be like this. Miss Leng, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the Alliance Master wanted to cry but had no tears. He really regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. If he had known that Shui Mo had dragged Leng Ruoxue away for so long, he would not have been so humble. Unfortunately, he had realized it a little too late. Leng Ruoxue was obviously still angry at him. Therefore, he only glanced at the General Alliance Master indifferently and said, Alliance Master, did I make you wait for so long? Woo! It's all my fault. When the Alliance Master heard this, he quickly admitted his mistake. However, Leng Ruoxue still did not give him a good look. It was only now that he believed Li Jing's words. He had really offended Leng Ruoxue badly. It's good that you know. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Miss Leng, please be magnanimous and forgive me. The Alliance Master continued to whisper and even acted like a mistreated wife as she pleaded. Seeing him like this, Leng Ruoxue was slightly flustered. She thought to herself, this Alliance Master is indeed abnormal. He actually learned how to act pitiful. However, was it acceptable for a tall and manly man to make such an expression? Alright, if you have anything to say, say it. Leng Ruoxue couldn't take it anymore. Now, she just wanted to get rid of this General Alliance Master as soon as possible, so that he wouldn't go crazy here. Zhang Miao and the others, I wonder what it will take for Miss Leng to return them to me? As soon as the Alliance Master heard that there was a chance, he immediately asked without beating around the bush. He couldn't help but think that Li Jing had taught him to act pitiful. It was indeed useful. You still want them? Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes as she asked in surprise. Ugh! What was the meaning of this? Can I not? The Alliance Master felt that he obviously couldn't keep up with Leng Ruoxue's pace, so he could only stare at her in a daze. Those people are really not of much use. Are you sure you want to take them back? Seeing that he did not understand, Leng Ruoxue could only make her words even more clear. After hearing this, the Alliance Master couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. Even if it was useless, he still had to take it back. What's the point of leaving her with Leng Ruoxue? No matter what, they are all members of the Ascender Alliance. I can't just leave them be. The Alliance Master said in a low voice. If that's the case, then I won't be polite. Leng Ruoxue nodded. The Alliance Master was taken aback once again. He didn't understand how Leng Ruoxue was going to be so rude. Then, he heard Leng Ruoxue say, you can redeem Zhang Miao and the others. This is the price list. Pay according to the above and you can take them away. After that, the Alliance Master received a thin piece of paper filled with the items needed for the ransom. After reading it, his face turned pale and his body trembled. Miss Leng, I have to go back and discuss with the Vice President and the elders. I will take my leave first. After a long time, the Alliance Master stammered. Then, like a zombie, he left the living room with stiff limbs. When he saw the Alliance Master come in high spirits but leave in such a defeated manner, Uncle Long was extremely curious about what Leng Ruoxue had done to him. He could not help but ask, Shuai, what did you do to him? Why is his body so stiff? Didn't I give him a list? After he sees that list, he'll probably think that there's no need to redeem those trash. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. As expected, Leng Ruoxue soon heard the news that the Alliance Master and Li Jing had left. However, when Uncle Long received the news, he was a little conflicted. If the Ascender Alliance really didn't want those trash, they wouldn't be of much use. But what Uncle Long didn't know was that the Alliance Master and Li Jing didn't leave in a hurry because they were so scared that they didn't want Zhang Miao and the others anymore. They just felt that the matter was of great importance and needed to go back to discuss it immediately. Thanks however, after they returned, the opinions of the higher-ups of the Ascender Alliance were very big. At least more than half of them did not agree to pay an extremely high price to redeem those who made their own decisions. As a result, this matter was naturally put on hold. Li Jing had also privately informed Leng Ruoxue and the others of this result. However, Leng Ruoxue and the others did not care about the Ascender Alliance's decision at all. They naturally did what they had to do. Shui Mo was still focused on studying Master Ye's insights on formations and had no time to disturb Leng Ruoxue. Thus, Leng Ruoxue resumed her days of refining pills and weapons. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. One day, Leng Ruoxue suddenly received a report that someone from the Qilin clan was requesting an audience. When she heard that it was the Qilin clan, Leng Ruoxue immediately put down the things she was doing and headed to the living room. At this moment, Uncle Long and the rest were sitting in the living room. However, the moment Leng Ruoxue entered the living room, she realized that the atmosphere was obviously not good. In his surprise, the 2 men who had their backs to him had already turned their heads. "You're Leng Ruoxue?" one of the men suddenly said. Leng Ruoxue nodded as she sized up the 2 unfamiliar men. Needless to say, the beasts' human forms were all extremely beautiful men. The 2 men in front of her were no exception. However, what surprised Leng Ruoxue was that these 2 men actually had the power of a godly venerable rank. How many reverent god-level experts did the Qilin clan have? She had already seen 3 during this period of time. It seemed like the Qilin race was indeed full of talents. Leng Ruoxue sighed. Just as Leng Ruoxue was sizing up the 2 men were also fastidiously sizing her up. After staring at her for a long time, the man who had spoken earlier said, "Human, I really can't see what's so special about you. Why is he so famous?" Ugh. Leng Ruoxue was a little depressed. Should she continue this conversation? However, after some thought, Leng Ruoxue still replied, "There's nothing special about me. I'm just an ordinary human being." Humph. At least you have self-awareness. You're indeed too weak. A weak woman like you definitely won't be able to find a partner in our Qilin clan," the man said in a serious tone. After he finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue's gloominess deepened. It was fine to say that she was weak, but what did this have to do with finding a partner? Moreover, was this considered a personal attack? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue's expression did not look too good, the other man hurriedly explained, "Miss Leng, please don't misunderstand. Feng Yi didn't mean anything else. He just wanted to say that you don't meet the criteria of our Qilin race for a mate. We men of the Qilin race prefer tall and strong women. Only such women can better bear the children of the Qilin race." Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She really felt that it was better if the man didn't explain. After he explained, she felt even more depressed. "You bastard. Are you here to pick a partner? Why was he so picky with her? And even if you're here to choose a partner, I don't want to be chosen by you, do I?" Hence, Leng Ruoxue could not understand what these 2 men were up to. What were they trying to do? Leng Ruoxue was so angry that she was going crazy. However, Uncle Long and the others were laughing to themselves. They didn't expect the 2 from the Qilin clan to say this first when they saw Leng Ruoxue. However, they had heard of the unique aesthetic of the Qilin clan and had seen it with their own eyes today. Furthermore, the person they were nitpicking on was little Shuai. When they saw Leng Ruoxue's expression as if she was about to go crazy, Uncle Long and the others suddenly felt a sense of love. After all, there were not many people who could anger Shuai on their first meeting. Leng Ruoxue was truly infuriated. After a long silence, she took a few deep breaths and told herself not to be calculative with these 2 idiots. She then opened her pink lips and asked, "Are the 2 of you here for a blind date?" "Blind date? Of course not," Feng Yi said quickly, his face still showing a look of disdain. "Then what are you guys doing here?" Leng Ruoxue almost roared. "Our Qilin race's ancestor has been in Demon City for over 2 months, but he hasn't returned yet. As such, we've been ordered to investigate this matter. Feng Yi said honestly. Investigate? Do you think we've killed him? When Leng Ruoxue heard this, her anger flared up. Murder? Of course not. Even if all of you were to join forces, you would still not be a match for my ancestor. We're only here to investigate where our ancestor went. Feng Yi said with a look of disdain. You're saying that all of us here are no match for Sir Shuemo? Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue squinted her eyes and said in a dangerous tone. How detestable. Not only did this fellow criticize her and look down on her, but he was also looking down on everyone in Demon City. Really, Uncle can endure it, but Aunt can't. Just as Leng Ruoxue was about to launch an attack, the man beside Feng Yi saw that the situation was not looking good and quickly explained, Miss Leng, please don't misunderstand, I didn't misunderstand. I heard him clearly. That's what he meant. Leng Ruoxue didn't even give the other party a chance to finish his sentence before she interrupted him. Ugh! The man didn't know what to say. He turned and glared at Feng Yi, blaming him for not knowing how to speak. But in fact, his words were not any better, he just did not realize it. At this moment, the man heard Leng Ruoxue pointing at Feng Sun and saying, since you look down on all of us here, then I'll challenge you to a one-on-one fight. Chapter 2734, If you lose, I'll marry you, one-on-one. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Feng Sun couldn't help but widen his eyes. His face was full of shock, and he couldn't help but think to himself, is this woman out of her mind? She, a divine emperor, was actually challenging him, a godly venerable rank expert, one-on-one? Not only was Feng Yi surprised, even the other man had a shocked look on his face. It was obvious that both of them felt that Leng Ruoxue was not normal. Could it be that they had triggered him? That. Miss Leng, please calm down. A one-on-one fight is not a joke. The man couldn't help but remind her kindly. That's right, I refuse to fight you one-on-one. Feng Yi agreed. What, are you scared? Leng Ruoxue provoked. What a joke. Why would I be afraid? I'm just afraid that it'd be bad if I accidentally hurt a weak woman like you. What if you can't get married and come to me? Feng Yi said with an infuriating look. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she was so angry that she wanted to beat someone up. No, it was beating up a beast. You bastard. Who did he think she was? Even if she couldn't get married, she wouldn't blame an idiot, okay? Since you're not afraid, then let's have a one-on-one fight. Don't worry, even if I can't get married, I won't rely on you. Leng Ruoxue suppressed her anger as she spoke. She was planning to teach this fellow a lesson later on. This stupid beastie really did not know how to talk. I see. Then what if you lose? Feng Yi was tempted. He had long heard of how powerful Leng Ruoxue was. If he had the chance to let her experience the experts of the Qilin clan, he would be very willing. When he returned, he might even have the capital to show off. If you lose, I'll pay you 1 million top-grade crystals. Leng Ruoxue replied without hesitation. Feng Yi's eyes lit up when he heard that. He was very satisfied with Leng Ruoxue's words. Top-grade crystal. He liked it. It's settled then. Afraid that she would go back on her words, Feng Yi immediately said. Yes, but if I lose, I'll pay you 1 million top-grade crystals. What if you lose? Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. How could I possibly lose? Feng Yi said confidently. I don't care how you lost. I just want to ask you, what will you give me if you lose? This way, our competition will be fair. Leng Ruoxue asked stubbornly. She wasn't that stupid to just pay the price and let this Kirin take advantage of her. I don't have 1 million top-grade crystal stones. How about I marry you if I lose? After thinking for a while, Feng Yi made up his mind. When he said this, his face was full of struggle and unwillingness, as if he had suffered a great grievance. Everyone present, including Leng Ruoxue, was in a state of confusion when they heard this. This bet? Let's count it as a bet. Isn't it a little too big? Uncle Long and the others were so scared that their little hearts were trembling. They prayed from the bottom of their hearts that Shuai would still lose to this Qilin. They weren't betraying others. However, they felt that if Shuai really won and this Kirin insisted on marrying her, the mistress of the dark world who was currently somewhere would probably flip out. At the thought of this, Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but shiver. The consequences would be too terrifying. While Uncle Long and the rest were having wild thoughts, Len Ruoxia's forehead was filled with black lines. To think that this Qilin could come up with such an idea. More importantly, what are you trying to do with that reluctant look on your face? Could it be that it was a grievance for him to marry her? It was wrong. It was wrong. What was she thinking? Pulling back her furious thoughts that had drifted to the horizon, Len Ruoxia was about to reject the other party's suggestion. However, before she could speak, an even angrier voice rang in everyone's ears, "You bastard! Where did this toad that wants to eat swan meat come from?" Thanks. As she spoke, a white bolt of lightning shot into Len Ruoxia's arms. Then, she glared at Feng Yi with her teeth and claws bared. When Uncle Long and the others saw that Tsang had actually come, they knew that things were bad. But in front of Tsang, they didn't dare to say anything and could only try their best to pretend to be invisible. Where did this little kitten come from? It's so cute. Seeing that it was a snow-white kitten speaking, Feng Sun reached out his finger to tease it out of habit. Back in his tribe, he had always comforted the angry little Kylin in this way. Unfortunately, he had forgotten that the kitten in front of him was not a cub of their race. As a result, as soon as his fingers stretched out, Tsang immediately clawed back without hesitation. Seeing this, Feng Yi could only quickly retract his fingers. But even though he was very fast, he was not as fast as Tsang Chu's claws, so 2 thin claw marks were left on his fingers. He's really wild. Although he was scratched, Feng Yi was not angry. Tsang was angry. You bastard. He actually teased it like a cat. Although it looked like a cat now, it wasn't a real cat. So, Tsang immediately decided that he hated this guy who didn't have good eyes. More importantly, this guy actually wanted to marry his girl. Humph. In your dreams. In your dreams. You're the wild one, your entire family is wild. You toad. Azure said hatefully. Toads? Was he talking about him? Feng Yi was very depressed. Although he was not the most handsome man in the tribe, he was in the top 10 in the Qilin tribe. Who knew how many female Qilin had a crush on him? How did he become a toad when it came to this little kitten? Furthermore, he was clearly praising the cat. But why did this little kitten turn around and scold him? Feng Yi felt extremely wronged. Len Ruoxia couldn't bear to see Qilin's teary eyes as if it had suffered a lot of grievances. She urged Tsang, "Tsang, he looks down on all of us from the land of evil demons. Go and bite him ruthlessly." As long as she thought of releasing the azure and biting the Qilin, Len Ruoxia felt that this scene was especially lovely. However, when Tsang heard this, he turned around with a constipated look and glared at Len Ruoxia. "Girl, I'm not a dog." "Ah. Even if he's not a dog, he can still bite him." Len Ruoxia said weakly. "I won tea. He was too stinky. At most, I'll scratch him." Azure bargained. "That works too." Len Ruoxia agreed. "Excuse me, are you guys discussing biting me or scratching me?" At this moment, Feng Yi, who felt that something was wrong, interrupted. "Correct, but no reward." Len Ruoxia nodded with a smile. "How could you do this?" Feng Yi's face was filled with grief and indignation. Then, he reminded her, "We haven't had a one-on-one yet. Didn't you want a one-on-one fight?" "I do want a one-on-one fight, but am not satisfied with your conditions." Len Ruoxia sighed. "Why not? I'm such a beautiful man, what are you not satisfied with? You should know that you don't fit our Qilin race's taste. If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't take out 1 million top-grade crystals, I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice myself like this. Seeing Leng Ruoxiu's unwillingness, Feng Yi seemed to feel even more aggrieved. He wasn't willing to either, okay? However, he felt that a stunningly beautiful man like him should be worth at least 1 million top-grade crystals, right? More importantly, he didn't think he would lose. Since he couldn't lose, what did it matter if he said that, right? Chapter 2735, If you lose, I'll marry you. 2. Feng Yi's plan was very good, but he had to face Leng Ruoxiu. Leng Ruoxiu, who was also very confident in her own abilities, also felt that she would win. As such, she would naturally not agree to his conditions. Azure was even more unhappy. In his heart, no one was worthy of his girl. One had to know that only that stinky evildoer could barely obtain his approval, so what was this Qilin? You toad, don't even think about eating my girl's swan meat. Don't have any ideas about my girl, understand? At the same time, he roared. I'm not a toad, and I don't have any ideas about your girl. She's not my type. I've also said that this is the greatest price I can pay. It's 1 million top-grade crystals. Feng Yi was furious. This little kitten looked quite cute on the outside, but why was her mouth so vicious? She called him a toad again and again. She really couldn't stand it. Humph. Feng Yi really felt that if he didn't get angry, the man and cat would really think that he was easy to bully. So you're only worth 1 million top-grade crystals. Hearing him say this, Azure's face was filled with disdain. Ah. Of course, it's more than that. Feng Yi quickly said. Then you don't have to sacrifice so much. There's really no need. Leng Ruoxiu couldn't wait for him to take back his words. Otherwise, she would die of depression. But I don't have 1 million top-grade crystals for you. Although he knew that he would not lose, Feng Yi had to say this. He even had some hope that Leng Ruoxiu would be generous and tell him that he did not need to pay. But such a thought was obviously daydreaming. Then don't fight my girl one-on-one, how about we fight one-on-one? If you lose, you'll be my slave for the rest of your life. How about it? Before Leng Ruoxiu could speak, Tsang suggested with a smirk. You? Feng Yi couldn't help but blink and looked at Tsang up and down. Can you do it? With your small body, can you withstand my kick? You bastard. Who said I can't? Who dares to say I can't do it? I can't scratch him to death. When Cold One heard that there were beasts suspecting that he couldn't do it, his anger rose. After that, it gestured with its little paw and said to Feng Sun, Kid, I'll let you know if I can do it or not. All you need to do now is to tell me if you dare to fight me one-on-one. Why wouldn't I dare? Let's make this clear, what if you lose? Feng Yi said without any suspicion. If I lose, my girl will pay you 2 million top-grade crystals. Tsang said generously. Deal. Feng Yi agreed. When Uncle Long and the others heard this, they couldn't help but show sympathy in their eyes. They truly felt that Tsang and Leng Ruoxiu, that bad girl, were working together to scheme against this silly boy. Poor Feng Yi, he actually fell into a trap like this. However, Feng Yi didn't understand why Uncle Long and the others looked at him so differently. He thought that Uncle Long and the others were worried about the little kitten. However, after scheming against Feng Yi, Leng Ruoxiu still felt that she had not vented her anger. She then had her eyes on another man. She was all smiles as she asked the other man in a very kind manner, and you are? I'm Bing Xiao of the Qilin clan. The man introduced himself. Bing? Leng Ruoxiu was stunned for a moment before she asked, shall we have a one-on-one? Thanks. Ice Cloud was silent and speechless. In his heart, he couldn't help but wonder if Leng Ruoxiu was addicted to one-on-one combat. Let's have a one-on-one too. Seeing that Bing Xiao did not respond, Leng Ruoxiu asked again. I don't think so. The corner of Bing Xiao's mouth twitched. He was obviously provoked. He did not think that he had offended Leng Ruoxiu like Feng Yi. Why did Leng Ruoxue have her eyes on him? Bing Xiao couldn't understand. However, Leng Ruoxue clearly had no intention of letting him off. She said directly, if you're willing to fight me one-on-one, as long as you win, I'll pay you 10 million top-grade crystals. How about it? 10 million? Uncle Long and the others were shocked. Shuai's cannonball was really big. He just didn't know if Ice Cloud could withstand it. When Ice Cloud heard the price, he was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. When Feng Yi heard the price, he was also shocked, but what followed was a strong sense of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Before Bing Xiao could react, he shouted angrily, "Why is he only giving me 10 million while I'm only giving 2 million? You want to hear the truth?" Leng Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. "I must hear the truth." Feng Yi roared. "You're not even worth 2 million. However, I have to give face to Azure. Since it's said that it will pay you 2 million if it loses, of course I have to pay." Leng Ruoxue said honestly. But her truth was a huge blow to Feng Yi. "You," Feng Yi pointed at Leng Ruoxue. He was so angry that his eyes were wide open. He could not form a complete sentence for a long time. "You what? Come, let's have a one-on-one." Not wanting Feng Yi to cause trouble for his girl, Tsang didn't say a word. He directly picked up Feng Yi and teleported away. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were rather indifferent to this scene, but Bing Xiao was extremely shocked. Feng Yi was a supreme god. How was it possible for a cat to grab her clothes and drag her away? After witnessing this scene, Bing Xiao was even more unwilling to fight Leng Ruoxue one-on-one. He told Leng Ruoxue tactfully, "Miss Leng, we're here to look for the old ancestor, so it's better not to have a one-on-one fight. Since you insist on refusing, then I won't force you." Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. She was well aware that Tsang's actions must have frightened Bing Xiao. This was something that could not be helped. For a cat to drag a reverent god away, it was indeed quite scary. However, Tsang definitely didn't think that his actions would scare Ice Cloud. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken Feng Yi away without saying anything. When Tsang brought Feng Yi back, Feng Yi's image had changed. The handsome man who had originally looked noble, cold, and extraordinary was now no different from a beggar. The gorgeous clothes on his body had also been torn into strips of cloth, hanging on his body on the verge of falling at any time. In addition, his originally extremely handsome face was also full of claw marks, looking simply too horrible to look at. Moreover, Feng Yi's mental state was clearly not good. As soon as Feng Yi saw Bing Xiao, he couldn't help but hug him and cry. As he cried, he choked, "Woo! That's too scary. It was too terrifying. It was simply not human. It was a demon. I want to leave this place, it's too dangerous here, this isn't a place we should be at, I want to go home." Listening to Feng Yi's tearful complaints, Bing Xiao's forehead was already full of cold sweat. Needless to say, Feng Yi must have suffered a great shock. Otherwise, he would not be like this, holding him and crying like a helpless little boy.